with Robbie.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Connor Bedard did nothing last night.
Yeah, well, Chicago lost 8-1 to Dallas the game before.
So
they're in a slump.
This isn't a scoring contest. This is a winning and losing.
Yeah.
And you took their best player out of the game.
They played fine. And
then, you scored 3 seconds into that 5-on-3 that basically iced the game.
Yeah, took a 5-on-3.
That was a nice win for the Predators. I am happy with the Predators for that. Now, to the team that I'm not happy with, which is the team that most of you are not happy with, and that is the Titans. So the Mike Vrabel drama has ratcheted up a couple of notches about does he want to be here? Are the Patriots or other teams interested in trading for him? Do he and Carthon hate each other? And finally, one of the Daily Scribes, had the courage to ask about all the rumors. Now, I did think it was at least a little disingenuous. Now, I'm going to give Terry McCormick credit because it was a good question, except Terry was kind of softening up the question a little bit, talking about the rumors on social media. Mike Lombardi is a former NFL general manager. That is not social media. The Washington Post, which today ran a story about how Vrabel and Carthon don't like each other, is the paper that broke the story on Watergate. Okay? This is not social media says. That's an easy way to discredit it without actually acknowledging that, oh, no, these are coming from reputable sources. Other than that, though, I thought it was a great question by Terry, and I am happy that Terry asked the question about Vrabel, and that led to the follow-up about, so do you want to be here?
Of course I want to be here. Be here as long as we can win, and long as we can do this thing. And it's been great, but it also has been, just frustrating this year. Nobody wants to be where we're at.
Okay. Vrabel says he wants to be here, and I want to be here as long as we can, quote unquote, win, which right now they're not doing, and do this thing, whatever that means. So basically the headline is Mike Vrabel wants to stay here. Well, no, duh. I mean, I'm not one of these people that says, why ask the question when you know what they're going to say? Because I can't speak for another man. If they had not asked the question to Mike Vrabel about does he want to be here, then we would be sitting here saying, well, what's Vrabel have to say about it? So at least Vrabel answered the question. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I believe him or I don't believe him. And that's what takes me to the crux of the issue with the Titans. I don't know if I said takes or take, but that's what takes me to the crux of the issue with the Titans, is that I don't know what to believe when it comes to Vrabel and Ran Carthon. We have Mike Lombardi's comments, where Mike Lombardi, in no uncertain terms, basically said the Titans want to keep Vrabel, and Vrabel's not sure, and the Titans have front office problems. And you can discredit Mike Lombardi all you want. Just remember, Mike Lombardi was right about Kevin Byard. I hear this all the time. People are just crying, oh, that guy, he doesn't know. He was right about that one. And once you're right about something, like, at least that means somebody's talking to you. Now, the new article in the Washington Post is from Jason La Canfora. And I don't even know if I can really read it on the air, or like if I feel right reading it on the air, because as I can tell you about the credibility of Lombardi, which I think there's some real credibility there, and I appreciate that as a former general manager and a football guy, and Lombardi even told me at the Super Bowl, we were talking about being an ex-football guy that's doing TV like he is, or radio, and Floyd used to always really hate the fact that he was a media guy because at heart he was a football guy, and Lombardi kind of echoed those same sentiments. La Canfora, I mean, I don't know why the Washington Post lets him write for them, but I don't know what to believe when it comes to him. I don't even know if anything that Jason La Canfora actually broke that was real, but he did write in the Washington Post today that another GM across the league has told him that it's not working out between Vrabel and Carthon. But again, I feel kind of dirty even referencing it, because I think La Canfora is such a freaking weasel. But again, that's another thing that's come out lately. And then I've also heard things. But a lot of people talk. People have agendas. And so when you hear a lot of things and they come from different people and they essentially say the same thing, it's hard to be able to differentiate what is true and what's not. And maybe that ambiguity is what the Titans like, though I highly doubt it. But that's where we are. So here's the one thing that I feel confident in saying. There's smoke. That's the one thing that I feel to my core is there is smoke. If I was an investigative reporter, if I was a detective, and I was assigned to the case of, does Mike Vrabel want to be with the Titans? Do the Titans believe in Mike Vrabel? Do Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon get along? I would not stop digging. I would not take Mike Vrabel's testimony or his interrogation or whatever that was at the press conference today and say, well, boom, case closed, done looking at it. No, 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 no. There's smoke. And I don't think Mike Vrabel's very happy. And I think yesterday, the losing effing sucks, I think that kind of showed the frustrations that Vrabel has. Now, where those frustrations are coming from, I couldn't tell you. So whether it's with Rand and his ability to collaborate, I don't know. Whether it's with Amy and ownership and his trust in ownership, perhaps after the way the GM search was done, messages that were conveyed to him that didn't come to fruition, messages that were conveyed to others that did not come to fruition, the power delegation. Maybe that's what it could be. I don't know. Maybe it could be in regards to ownership and the financing. We talked about, hey, the salary cap matters to teams that don't want to spend money. Now, in the past, the Titans have been willing to spend money. This year, the Titans were not. Maybe Vrabel's mad about that. Maybe Vrabel looks at his football team where he's swapping spit with Andre Dillard and Jalen Duncan, and he's saying, well, if you gave me $30 million to pay the left tackle like the Texans have given their left tackle $30 million, then maybe, just maybe, I'd have a shot to compete in these games. But I can't tell you what is what and what's not. I have no idea, and I'm not going to sit up here and pretend that I do. Again, I've read things which I have subsequently discussed with you, and I've heard things that maybe I haven't discussed with you. But it's a whole lot of smoke. I am convinced, one way or another, Mike Vrabel's not happy. And a guy like Vrabel has a very hard time with just sucking it up. Derek Mason, the old Vandy coach who's now at MTSU, I have an immense amount of respect for that man. I don't know if you guys listened when he was on during SEC Media Days. And, you know, the SEC Media Day stuff is kind of boring to me. So is Georgia going to be good or is Alabama? Let's talk about it with Chris Doering from the SEC Network. Like, I don't do that kind of stuff. But Derek Mason I wanted to have on because he and I have a history, right? And I remember talking to him, and I told him this during the COVID shutdowns when he was still the Vandy coach, and we lived in the same neighborhood. And I told him this on the air, which was, I thought he should have been the Vanderbilt coach for life because he won 3 straight games against Tennessee. He makes a bowl game here or there, whatever. But when you're the head coach at Vanderbilt, you're going to get kicked in the face over and over and over and over again. And he was cool with it. He was cool with it. Lose 98-0 to Georgia, doesn't bother him for the next week. You get to make $4 million. You get to live in Nashville. But you'll never be the king of a town the way Nick Saban is in Tuscaloosa. You'll never win a national championship at Vanderbilt. But he was okay with that. Vrabel is not that kind of guy. Vrabel cannot suck it up. Vrabel cannot, hey man, you just got crushed by the Texans, but it's okay because we got a good draft pick. He can't do that. So if he's got problems with Rand Carthon, he's not going to address it in a press conference because that would be the wrong thing to do. But I'm still convinced that he'd have a hard time on the day-to-day to sit down and be excited to attack this offseason if he thinks the guy that he's collaborating with isn't very bright. That would be hard for him to do. So this is a very long-winded way of me saying that just because Mike Vrabel finally was asked about and finally addressed all of the nonsense that's out there, and again, I think there's smoke. I think it's something. But because Mike Vrabel finally addressed the giant elephant in the room, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually true. Just like Nick Saban said in a similar circumstance that he wasn't going to Alabama. Just like Amy Adams Strunk came out and said in a similar circumstance that Mike Mularkey was their head coach moving forward for 8 days. It wouldn't do Vrabel any favors before this game that he's going to tell the entire team, it means nothing, but we got to win, guys. If he just said, man, I don't really care because I don't want to be here anyways. But the one thing that I'm not turned off by from that answer is that there's more and more smoke. And it keeps coming, and as the old saying goes, where there's smoke, generally speaking, there's fire. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025, and maybe you take Vrabel's word as gossip. Gospel, not gossip. That's what we do. Gossip. 615-737-1025. So speaking of Nick Saban being backed into that corner with the Dolphins and saying he wasn't going to Alabama, I actually went back and looked at that because, again, I'm trying to think of, okay, this has happened in the past. How was it dealt with? And I listened to his answer as to why he said he lied. And I found it fascinating and incredibly applicable to this. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025, 1063 The Game.
again, with all due respect to our season and to the Jacksonville Jaguars and to our, just the season, just the reflection and the improvement, and it hasn't been there for any of us, and not enough of it. And whether that be me, the coaching staff, the players, I think we just have to continue to strive to improve and clean up the things that, we see that can affect whether we win or lose. And so that's what we're going to try to do this week. And then we'll be able to, touch on where, we feel like we're going to go after that.
I interpreted that as I will take accountability for the screw-ups on Monday. But today, we're not going to talk about, this was yesterday, by the way, but today we're not going to talk about that because I don't want to get up here and say, we screwed up on Andre Dillard, and then turn around and say, all right, Andre, you're in at left tackle. But that is exactly what I am hoping to hear on Monday from the Titans. And I hope to hear from Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon, and we'll get to that part of it at some point later today. But I do hope to hear from them on Monday, and I do hope for them to take at least some form of accountability. So today, the big story is Mike Vrabel says he wants to be here. In fact, somebody texted in, and I'm telling you, what else is he going to say in that spot? Now, again, those are his words. He went on record, and you can choose to believe him or not, and I just think there's a lot of smoke. And one texter says that one texter texted in and said, I wonder if Vrabel could just be upset because he's losing games. Is that too far-fetched, or does that just not make for good radio? That all this is fake, every last bit of it. It's all nonsense. It's all bullcrap. Everything that Charles Robinson said and Jason Fitz said and things I've heard and things that were said by, who was it? Mike Lombardi said, and then they wrote Jason LaCanfora in the Post. Again, I'm skeptical when it comes to LaCanfora. All of it's wrong. All of it's wrong. I have a hard time kind of believing that. Even on draft night, we played this clip a bunch, but Ran Carthon gets all up in his feels about everybody asking about Tajay Spears' ACL and Will Levis's interceptions. And he tells everybody, the media, finger wags, be positive, because this could be the greatest night of their life, to which Vrabel's eyes just stopped. We even read a body language thing after the draft when this happened. Vrabel's eyes just stop and he just stares. And I remember reading that and it was like, oh yeah, that is a sign of anger. And then Vrabel, 8 minutes after the fact, goes, if the NFL draft is the best night of your career, you didn't have a very good career. Almost to say, I'm not co-signing on with that bullcrap. So I don't think it's about what makes for good radio. I think it's about assessing the situation and trying to do it fairly, which is the number one thing that I want to do. And as I said, when people get backed into corners and they get put on the spot of, do you still want to be the coach here? 99.9% of the time, they say yes. I wonder what would happen if Jim Harbaugh, who is clearly planning a jump to the NFL, Adam Schefter said yesterday, he didn't hire Don Yee to be his agent so that they could negotiate a contract with Ward Manuel, the AD at Michigan. Now, this is about looking into the NFL. I'm sure if you ask Jim Harbaugh, is your focus on the NFL? Are you going to go to the NFL? He'd tell you, oh, he's committed to Michigan. Which takes me back to 2006, when Alabama was looking desperately for a coach. They thought they had Rich Rodriguez, and it completely fell through, and the only Hail Mary pass they had was to go get Nick Saban at the Miami Dolphins. And Nick Saban, in the middle of the season, at the end, asked repeatedly about the Dolphins job. This is what Saban said then.
I don't know how else I can say it, guys. I've said it 3 different occasions. Well, then I guess I have to say it. I'm not going to be the Alabama coach. I think I've said this over and over and over again.
That was a lie, as we all know. Nick Saban, though, was asked about it in ESPN Sunday Conversation. Ian, you remember those? The Sunday Conversations?
Those used to be great.
Chris Mortensen sat down with Saban and basically asked him, why'd you lie?
Why even answer the question when they were asking it?
Because sometimes you get it put in a position when you have a commitment and your loyalty is to your players and your team, and you get to ask questions that you're not totally comfortable in answering, but yet if you don't answer them, that creates another speculation on the other side. So now, am I being loyal to my team if I say no comment, or well, maybe after the season I'll consider it. Then what happens?
I mean, doesn't that make a lot of sense? Like, Nick Saban lies. He's asked about why he lied after the fact, after it's proven that he lied, and he just tells you straight up, well, if I say no comment, it becomes an even bigger distraction for my team. And I wasn't comfortable to answer the question right then and there. And so I felt like I had to do what was best for the team. And it's like, okay. I mean, hey, makes sense to me. It feels to me like that was the position Vrabel was put in today. So that's why the whole concept of, if people want to say, Vrabel said that he's happy here, it's like, yes. But what, again, Nick Saban, when asked, getting ready for Dolphins practice, was not going to say he was going to take the Alabama job. In fact, a bigger thing that was more newsworthy to me was actually last week on Vrabel's Coach's TV show, and he was asked a question about maybe it was the Kids Ask Coach, or it was, I can't remember what it was, but Mike Keith was like, I tell people that you love your job. And Vrabel was like, well, I do love coaching. I'm frustrated with how we're doing, but we're going to see this through, or something like that. And I'm like, that has more weight for me about Vrabel planning to be here next year than the idea of Vrabel being asked and him saying, of course I plan to be here next year. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. One texter says, are there more places other than New England that would be interested in trading for a coach, or is it just his speech up there that started all of this? Well, I don't think it's his speech that started all of this. This started, which is what led to the question, which is now being what's discussed. But I don't know what the interest in Vrabel is. Vrabel has an agent, okay? That's the agent's job, is to grasp who would be interested in Mike Vrabel. Right now, there are, 3 jobs that are for sure open. Carolina, and as much as Vrabel might hate things here, if he does hate them here, as much as he might hate them here, I cannot imagine they would be better in Carolina. The Chargers, which I think would be a great job for him, but I'm not sure they would be interested in paying the salary that he would command, or that they would be interested in a defensive coach, given the fact that they have an all-worldly quarterback, and they've had a defensive coach, even though he was a dumbass, which is a big difference between Vrabel, who just does some stupid things, and somebody who is chronically stupid, and the Raiders, who I think the Raiders, again, I'm not farming their land, but I think the Raiders should hire Antonio Pierce to be their head coach. And then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you can't skip on Rich Bisaccia, go out, pay all the money for Josh McDaniels, have that completely blow up the way that it did, and then turn around after the interim coach gets results and say, well, we're not interested in him. Because they'll run you out of town for that. As the owner, they'll run you out of town for that. So, I guess maybe Vrabel could go to the Raiders, but do the Raiders really have the money to be able to do that? Now, there are other jobs that are going to open. New England is going to open, and I think New England's going to have interest in Vrabel. I saw a quote in an article in The Athletic yesterday about Belichick and Kraft, and it was Robert Kraft says that he always measures 9 times before cutting the 10th. And I almost wonder if that article about Robert Kraft's home run hire would be Mike Vrabel. I wonder if that was him measuring, him taking the temperature of the city and the fan base and everything else and saying, what would you think about Vrabel? And then all of a sudden it turned to, well, I hear it's going to be Mayo. And maybe that's, again, measuring 9 times. So that's 4 jobs that are going to come open. I think 2 AFC South jobs might come open. Atlanta, New Orleans, or Tampa. Maybe all 4 could be open because Carolina's already open. Again, I read Locke Hanfora said that there's no shot that Arthur Smith keeps his job, but I don't know how much I trust Locke Hanfora. So, again, those are all openings. I can't answer the question. It sounds like Chicago's going to stick with Matt Eberflus, which is incredibly stupid, but that's their business, not mine. So I can't tell you if a team like the Steelers would be interested in moving on from Mike Tomlin to hire. I have no idea. So, and I do think that's probably another part of this for Vrabel. is, could Vrabel be looking around at the market or his agent and seeing that there's really not much of a market there right now, at least not much of a market to trade for him? So maybe it's better off to mind your P's and Q's and suck it up in Nashville. That could be a possibility. I'm not saying no to that one way. I'm not saying no one way or another. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. I know that the distrust in the media is at an all-time high, and I get it. And I don't, while I don't completely agree with the media being fake or everything that I hear that I don't like not being true, I do think that there is a lot of anti-media sentiment, and some of it is well-earned. And so there are a lot of you that are probably thinking, here they go again on Conspiracy Theory Radio today, talking about Vrabel. Vrabel said he's happy here. Vrabel says he loves Rand. They did the article at ESPN where they were kissing each other on the tush. They did, they were out there at practice after Paul criticized them for never interacting with each other at practice. They're sitting there chopping it up. It's all fake. And again, I understand why a lot of people feel that way, and I'm not telling you you're wrong. I don't think you're right, but I'm not telling you you're wrong. But there was one thing that I did hear today on the Vrabel-Carthon front that does carry significant weight for me because it is who said it and it is when he said it. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app, and it should be yours too. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Let me just say this before I tell you more about how great the app is. Bet Jacksonville. I know they want to play hard on Sunday. I know that they're gonna try. I know, unless they're too busy getting haircuts. I know, but Jacksonville's gonna win on Sunday. If there was any bet, Jared, Jacksonville. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like same-game parlays and finding bets in the new Explorer tab. Plus, you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, and it's the best way to find popular parlays and more. FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a winner. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonuses issued in non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
this team is bad. This offensive line is atrocious. They really have some real issues. And the issues are, how good are they in the front office? And is Carthon and Vrabel going to be able to coexist together? I think that's got to be something talked about. They want to keep Vrabel, but I think Vrabel's not happy with the setup that he has.
There you go. That was Mike Lombardi on his GM Shuffle podcast that started again. It didn't start. It just reignited all this Vrabel talk. Vrabel, New England, ran, Titans, Vrabel. And the rumor mill continues. Jason LaCanfora wrote about it in the Washington Post. Again, I don't know, Ian. Should we stop talking? Should we stop referencing the Washington Post comments on Vrabel because of who they came from?
Well, I mean, he doesn't elicit a good response in these parts.
Do you know what McClain called him today on Chase and Joe?
No, I didn't hear that.
Jason non-confirma.
Yeah, it's kind of a dad joke right up McClain's alley, but
Yeah.
It sounds about right.
Speaking of McClain, he was on Chase and Joe today, and they asked him about the Vrabel and Carthon rumors. And a lot of times when we're trying to decipher what's real and what's not, the two most important things are who said it and when or why did they say it. John McClain has no dog in this fight. I think he likes Vrabel, but I also don't think that he's beholden to Vrabel or Ran Carthon. And it's important of what John McClain said and when he said it. This is what John McClain said this morning on Chase and Joe.
I personally have no idea if Mike Vrabel and Rand Cawthorn get along. And I haven't heard anything like that. And I've talked to a lot of people. But I'll tell you this, if they don't, then Amy Adams Strunk will do something about it. But I have not heard that except from national people. Sometimes people hear about an organization. Sometimes players hear about it, tell their agent. The agents can't wait to curry favors with the national media. So I put a stock in about what I do the weather. I believe about 10% of it.
Okay, here's why this is important to me. Number one, who said it? John McClain. And John McClain is incredibly tight with Titans ownership. Why? Because he's known them for forever, and they want their dad to rightfully be placed in the Hall of Fame, and John McClain is kind of the beginning part to making that happen. Now, McClain's been trying to get Bud Adams in the Hall of Fame for forever, and it hasn't panned out yet, but McClain is kind of the leader when it comes to getting Bud Adams, again, rightfully into the Hall of Fame, and they know that. And so they've known John McClain for forever, and they need John McClain. The second part of it is the win. Ian, where were the Titans just recently?
Houston.
They were in Houston. Ian, who's in Houston?
Oh, you mean you're referring to John McClain?
John McClain. So if there were some serious, real drama, and I think that's what McClain was hinting at when he says, and I talked to a lot of people. If there were some serious drama there, I think there's a chance that McClain would have caught wind of it. And so that is not nothing to me. I know there are a lot of you that think that, oh, Jared's going to take every little rumor and blow it up because Jared wants this drama and Jared wants and Jared won't. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to acknowledge. I think there's smoke here. Like, I think there's something that's brewing inside the Titans. But I'm not going to dismiss what John McClain said because I know John McClain's credentials. I know his credibility. I know his connection with the Titans. And I know that the Titans and their owners were just in Houston. And as John said, he talks to a lot of people, and you know that. And so that's not nothing to me. 615-737-1025. Tristan has been waiting patiently and is up next here on Stillman and Company. Go ahead, Tristan.
Yes, I was wondering if Mike Vrabel leaves to New England or goes back to his alma mater, Ohio State. Like Ryan Day has lost 3 times to Michigan, and if Michigan wins the national title, I think Ryan Day could be fired. I mean, there's rumors out there. Ohio State wants to get rid of Ryan Day since he's lost the big time, and Mike Vrabel may pull the Nick Saban and just decide ooh, I can go win a national title at Ohio State like Nick Saban does at Alabama.
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think that they're going to fire. Thank you, Tristan. I don't think they're going to fire Ryan Day right now. I think the Vrabel Ohio State thing might be something for next year. Because I think Ryan Day's probably going to keep his job. But, man, I bet they are freaking pissed about losing that bowl game to Missouri. And I know bowl games are meaningless, but they're not meaningless when they happen. Like, I was at the bowl game for Louisville, and I was with the Louisville athletic department. I was standing on the field in the fourth quarter of the bowl game at the Holiday Bowl. And I tell you right now, every single person on that Louisville sideline, including me, wanted to win. The players, the coaches, the athletic director, the administration, they wanted to win. I wanted to win. I'm still not happy that we let Miller Moss throw for 9,000 yards in that bowl game. And I know that you all watched it last Wednesday and you've forgotten about it and don't care. I know. So Ohio State, again, we don't think less of Ohio State as a program because they lost to Missouri without any players. But I can promise you they're not happy about it. We've lost 3 in a row to Michigan. We have to watch Michigan beat Alabama and go to the championship game. And we haven't been to the championship game since 2020. And we got to watch Michigan do that after they've beaten us 3 years in a row. So I think Ryan Day is going to get next year. But if he don't beat Michigan next year, and I think Sharon Moore is going to be the coach at Michigan next year, if they don't beat Michigan next year, he is gone. And I think we can probably say the same thing about Vrabel if he stays here, right? If Vrabel doesn't turn things around this time next year, I don't think there will be any question as to whether or not Mike Vrabel will be the coach of the Titans in 2025. I mean, I think that it's looking like Vrabel's going to be the coach in 24. I don't know. But he's not going to be the coach in 25 if they keep losing games. Texter says, this is from Slick, I know they aren't going to, but if my Christmas wish comes true and the Titans completely clean house, who would you interview for GM? Well, I, again, would have a bunch of candidates, a bunch of them. But at the top of my list would probably be Thomas Dimitrov, the former Falcons general manager. He'd be up there. Will McClay of the Dallas Cowboys would be way high up on my list. Because I don't know his exact title with the Cowboys. I think it's like director of player personnel or something like that. And Jerry pays him. But he's never going to be the GM of the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, have you guys noticed with Dallas? Like, there's no way that old man Cooter Jerry Jones is sitting there scouting defensive backs in the 6th round and saying, boy, I tell you, that Deron Bland, I love the way he plays. I want him. I want him. No, that's Will McClay. He'd be right on my list. Adam Peters in San Francisco would be on my list. I know he turned down the Titans last time, but I think he might have turned down the Titans if for no other reason because he wasn't told he was getting full control. That could have been I don't know. But I'd interview all these guys. I'd interview Mark Dominic. What's crazy about the NFL is we let the coaches recycle, right? Dan Quinn of the Cowboys is going to get another head coaching job because he's done a good job as defensive coordinator. You fire a general manager, and it's just like, nope, John Robinson sucked. He traded away A.J. Brown. And that's what every single person across the country thinks. And nobody thinks about the fact that he won 61% of his games. Nobody thinks about the fact that he took the worst franchise in the NFL to the playoffs 4 times in 6 years? Like, that doesn't matter. And I don't understand it. And I don't think, again, and I think Rand Carthon probably had to learn this the hard way, but I don't think GM is a position that you can put training wheels on. Well, he'll learn one day. Too late. Goodbye. So I would be down to interviewing some guys that have been general managers before. But at the same time, I would have a deep list of candidates, and I would work really hard not to have, again, I've talked about Dimitrov a lot. I would work really hard to not have a bias that, oh, this is who I liked going in, this is who I'm going to like in the end. And quite frankly, that's impossible not to have some sort of a bias, but I would work really hard and would hope to be blown away. Another one is Duke Tobin in Cincinnati. He's Bill Tobin's son. And I don't know if you guys remember Bill Tobin when he was GM of the Colts with the, who in the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? After the draft in, I think, 94 when he did that. But he's been really good in Cincinnati. So those are just, again, a smattering of names that I would be interested in. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders, the recently married Chris Sanders, will join us. We'll get his thoughts on all the drama surrounding the Titans, and we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. And Stillman and Company is broadcasting live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios. Hey, tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home facing Reinhardt. Pregame begins at 6, tip-off is at 6:30, and coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. And tune into 94.9 The Fan tomorrow night for Vandy women's basketball, as the Commodores, who have been red hot this year, by the way, the Commodores will be on the road taking on my buddy Sam Purcell in Mississippi State. Tip-off is at 6:30, pregame at 6:15. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com. This Monday, tune in at 6:30 as Washington and Michigan face off in the College Football Playoff National Championship game right here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, presented by Twin Peaks and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Former Titans receiver Chris Sanders joins us on the program. Chris,
What's up,
first
baby?
of all, Happy New Year.
You too, man. How was your New Year? Everything good?
Wonderful. Secondly,
Good.
Mike Vrabel today asked if he wanted
I
to
heard it.
stay with the Titans after all the drama and talk that has come back out surrounding Vrabel and Carthon. He says, of course he wants to be here.
Yeah.
Do you make anything of it?
I'm just a little bit. I mean, everybody knows that Mike Vrabel's a competitor, and I think the reason why he'll stay is because he wants to show everybody that he's a great coach. But at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to happen. It's kind of like we talk about this all the time. It's kind of like days of our lives. We're trying to figure out, what he's going to do. Is he going to stay? What's going on with him and Rand? But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to kind of find and get an answer maybe in the next couple of months. But if he leaves here, man, it's going to send some shockwaves in the NFL.
Chris, what is your gut on all the things you've seen and read and heard? And I mean, you played college ball with Mike Vrabel, so you guys go back 30 years. I mean, what's kind of your gut feeling on all of this?
I don't know, because I was around him as a player. I've never been around him as a coach, so I don't really know what he's thinking. But as a competitor, the reason why I think he might stay, because, all his life he had to prove that, he can do what he needs to do. First, when he started at Ohio State, everybody talking about he wasn't big enough. I mean, he wasn't big enough, he wasn't fast enough and all this stuff. So he wants to prove something to everybody that he can. So now you're in a situation that you're going through adversity, you're going through tough situations, and now you want to prove that you can be a great coach. So I think that if that situation happens, or him making him stay, that's the reason why he'll stay, because he wants to prove that he can be a great coach.
What if it's that he doesn't trust Rand Carthon and that's why he wants to leave?
I mean, well, that might be it. And I told you this off the air. I mean, it might be a big bombshell in the next 2 months to be like, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else. With all this stuff swirling and all the, the stuff that everybody are saying, and who can you trust him? Can you trust that person? Have you lost the locker room? Sometimes a guy just wants a fresh start to not to think about that. So, we don't know. It's kind of like days of our lives, kind of what we talked about, but we just got to sit back and wait and see what's going to happen.
Chris Sanders is with us. As
Yes,
somebody
sir.
who loves the Titans, I think we all know Sunday's game against Jacksonville is probably just kind of, it is what it is. But then after that, the Titans will have to address the season that they had and the offseason with which they're planning. And what could they say or do in the next couple of days after the season's over that would give you hope going into 2024?
I think one of the bright spots would be, Will Levis. I mean, we didn't know if Will Levis was going to even play this year because, Tannehill was a quarterback. I think to convince the fans and convince the players that's going to be here that you don't have to go and look for your quarterback. You don't have to go in free agency. You don't have to go in the draft, because in our mind, we still hope that we might have a franchise quarterback. So if Mike Vrabel or Rand Carthon, they say that to the fans, they say that to the media, I think it puts a better taste in their mouth, because at least they have something solid at quarterback, and now you start building the pieces around him.
Do you think they need to say that? Because I think everybody probably
They're gonna
already
have
assumes
to.
that.
Yeah, I mean, they assume it, but I think it's the reassuring, because, we still don't know. I know they're saying it. A lot of people are saying it and thinking that, but are you sure? And I think that'll kind of maybe cement it to where, okay, we got our quarterback. This is what we're building. Let's go get some more wide receivers. Let's build our offensive line. Let's get, people in the secondary. Let's get some more defensive line guys. But the one thing that you have to have, you can have all those things like I just talked about, but if you don't solidify the quarterback situation, then that makes you going uneasy in the offseason.
Do you think that they will or should take accountability for how bad the offensive line's been this year?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, they have to take accountability, but man, it was tough to watch last week. I mean, you're watching, Dillard and Duncan and all those guys getting beat consistently. I mean, it's not even close. And the thing about it is, the one thing that's just kind of disappointing is, the last couple of years, that's all we've been talking about. You got to get a left tackle. You got to get a left tackle. You got to get a left tackle. And they kind of addressed it, but they didn't address it like it's supposed to be. So, but here's the good thing: you're coming on the off season, get some guys in the free agency. If whatever pick in the draft that we have, go out there and get a great left tackle and start building from there. But the good thing about the whole thing is, Jared, you got your quarterback in place, and I think that's a great start.
What do you think about Skoronski?
At the beginning of the season, I was very, very high on him. I mean, I really, really was, especially in camp and, just the way he carried himself and the things that he did. But just watching him, from camp, he just didn't develop into what I was. And it's kind of hard for me to say that because as a player, I don't like to put another player down, but he just didn't develop. He didn't get better. And as a professional athlete, you got to progress, or you're going to get left in this league. And from camp, from OTAs to camp to now, instead of getting better, he kind of regressed. And when you get that high, when you get picked that high, and you're digressing, now you start to question the pick. But at the end of the day, we're going to figure out a way to try to make him get better, to whoever the coach they bring in, whatever, and let him do what he needs to do.
Was Sunday's drop Chris Sanders from Traylon Burks kind of the nail in the coffin there?
Yeah, it hurt me to the core. I mean, because it's right there. Because if you go out there and make that catch on the first play of the game, you get your sideline excited. Everybody's pumped up. And also, when he makes that catch, now he has a lot of confidence. If you're watching a guy with this type of ability, he came from Arkansas, big physical guy, catches the ball at the high point, and Campy did well. The one thing that he's struggling with is confidence. Watch how he catches the football. If you watch how he catches the football now, when he tried to catch that long ball, he had alligator arms. When I say alligator arms, you shorten your length because you're not sure you can catch the football. If he would have caught that football, I think it would have put a good taste in the coach's mouth. But I think, in my opinion, you got to go out and get some other receivers because I just think that right now he needs a fresh start.
Do you think that they're have you seen a guy that's had the talent that he has and has had the struggles that he have had? Some are his fault, some are not. I mean, like that concussion that he suffered in the Eagles game last year was absolutely not his fault. He was right on his way. He had the knee injury in training camp this year. I saw it happen. Again, not his fault. But have you ever seen somebody that has a couple years like that and then turns it around, or is it just not in the NFL?
It's kind of tough. I'm gonna talk about the guys, but he didn't really go to another team. But Tyrone Calico was a physical specimen. He was big. He could run. He struggled with running routes a little bit. But man, when that guy was on, he was on him. He can catch the ball at the highest point and make some plays. He didn't get picked up later on because he was hurt. I just think that one thing Traylon Burks is going to have to do, if I was working in player development, if I was, sitting down there and mentoring him, the one thing I wouldn't focus on is not catching the jugs. I wouldn't focus on, running routes. I would focus on the mental part. The mental part is like, you know what? Let me build my confidence up. Once I build my confidence up, now I get to the jugs. Now I watch film. Now I understand how to run routes. And if he does that and maybe stays here or goes to another team, then now he can develop into the wide receiver that he's potentially can be. But the good thing about it is you still have that potential. You still have that different ways where you can try to make plays. But at the end of the day, it's all up to Burks.
So I will see you on Sunday for the pregame show, our final award-winning pregame show.
Oh, man, are you sad? Are you sad?
That it's our final award-winning pregame show of the year?
Yes.
A little bit. I mean, I'm sad. I'm happy the season's over because it's been such a disappointing season.
Yeah.
But then I'm sad because, what am I going to be doing next Sunday? And then the Sunday after
we're calling text each other every day. How about that?
I know we already do that, but at the same time, it's I get depressed when the football season's over. I'm like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now? which I do hate. But your prediction, the next time we talk on this show on a Wednesday, will Mike Vrabel be the coach of the Titans? Will Rand Carthon be the GM of the Titans?
I say Rand Carthon, yes. I say Mike Vrabel, no.
Oh, Chris Sanders with the bomb on his way out. Chris, great stuff. Appreciate you.
Love you, brother.
Happy
Appreciate
New Year.
you, man.
Love you too. Congratulations again to you and your wife on your new nuptials,
she's beautiful.
Chris.
Hey, love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yep, Chris
All right,
Sanders
man.
joining us
bye-bye.
on the program. Chris thinks that this time next week, Rand Carthon will be back and Mike Vrabel won't be. What do we make of it? Coming up next, I've always told you guys about Vrabelese. It's a special language. You have to know how to speak it. And there's only a couple people out there that are really good at speaking Vrabelese. Gentry Estes, who Vrabel, dropped the F-bomb on yesterday, and I don't have a problem with the question or the answer, but Gentry Estes is a good Vrabelese speaker. He will say, in press conferences, he'll turn around and he'll be like, hey, did you hear what he said? I'm like, oh, my God, you're right. Corey Curtis is a good Vrabelese speaker. But, Ian, you know who the best Vrabelese speaker is?
Who's that?
Me. And let me just say this. there are a couple of signs of Vrabelese that I want to know what he's referring to. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Speaking of the award-winning pregame show, be sure to join me, Chris, and Derek one last time from Teddy's Tavern this season as we will discuss where the Titans go from here. It's the award-winning pregame show starting at 9:30 to 11:30 live from Teddy's Tavern downtown. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on your telly or your phone or your iPad or whatever. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, it's all there. Again, just look for Stillman and Company. It's almost impossible, your Alexa devices, it's almost impossible to not find us here on the program. So there are some signs of Mike Vrabel's unhappiness that I have spotted with my Vrabelese detectors. Now, today he was asked about whether or not he wants to be here. He said he wants to be here. And he was asked about the Ran Carthon rumors, and he somewhat squashed those. But there was something that he said in that, again, popped my Mike Vrabel's antenna up. This was today when asked about the rumors surrounding him and Ran Carthon.
I really have never responded to any of those, and we're not going to start now. I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Ran and Chad and A-Rob and a coaching staff and everybody.
Okay. And my Vrabel's antenna popped off because everybody's looking for that answer, and you could have stopped it at a very certain point that he chose not to. Ian, can we play that cut again? And I'll tell you where to stop.
I really have never responded to any of those, and we're not going to start now. I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Ran and Chad. And
why do we have to talk about Chad, A-Rob, the coaching staff, and everybody? Why do we always talk about the assistant general managers? Why? And you're going to say, oh, Jared, this isn't that big of a deal, except for this is not the first time that he did this. In fact, when I asked him about the miscalculations that he and Ran made, not he, Ran, Chad, and Anthony Robinson, no, the miscalculations that he and Ran made, the coach and the GM, the people that make the most money, that are in charge of the program, he went right back to that well.
I mean, I think that, Ran and I and Chad and A-Rob and the coaching staff, we'll focus on, personnel and player acquisition when we get there. Right now it's focusing on, getting a meeting that has the corrections and, moving forward here to Jacksonville and, what we have. And so, I don't think that it's, a calculation or anything with regards to that. We just have to make sure that pieces are there and they know what to do, and that we're able to protect based on, the matchups and what it is each week.
Okay. Again, I asked about him and Ran. And he, again, doing the Vrabel dance around, not going to talk about it. He talked about Ran and Chad and Anthony Robinson. Why? I don't ever remember when asking about decisions on personnel between Mike Vrabel and John Robinson, I don't ever remember asking or hearing Mike talk about the input from Monty Ossenfort. Not once. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know what Monty Ossenfort did. I don't know what Ryan Cowden did. In fact, I didn't even know that Ryan Cowden was number 2 in the Titans organization until Ryan Cowden spoke at a press conference because the NFL required the second person in line of the personnel department to talk before training camp last year. I had no idea. And Ryan Cowden just sat there while John Robinson answered questions the whole time. And then after a while was asked about the job interview he had with the Steelers. And that was it. And again, those aren't the only 2 times that he's brought up Chad and Ran and Anthony Robinson. He did the same thing in the ESPN article where they talked about their great relationship. So that's the first time. In fact, here's the quote. Vrabel said, quote, "I've actually really enjoyed working with Ran, Anthony, and Chad. We've added some good people that have been from different places." Why does he always bring them up? That's the first sign that I'm like, okay, this seems incredibly rehearsed, or it's a point that he's clearly making. Nobody has asked him. I don't think one person has asked him, what do you think of Anthony Robinson? Not one person. And yet every time he's asked about him and Ran, it goes to Ran, Chad, and A-Rob. Why? Again, what the hell did Monty Ossenfort do here? I don't know. Most people don't. We don't talk about Floyd Reese, Jeff Fisher, and Rich Sneed. So that's new. And then the second thing was Paul was badgering Vrabel yesterday about injuries. And I don't exactly know kind of what the angle Paul was taking was. Like, you know, oh, you guys have tried everything. You switched out the turf and the injuries are still happening. Or, oh, the injuries are better. I don't know. I don't feel like the Titans have been as injured this season as they've been in the past. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I haven't really thought much of injuries. I don't think injuries are why you stink. I don't think injuries would be the difference between you being good or not. But Paul was asking about injuries. And listen to this little shot Vrabel takes at the analytics department when Paul, again, was on like question 8 in a row about injuries.
What do you think the rest of that is due to level out over time?
I guess it's like analytics. I guess you need a lot of examples, however many examples they use to run the model.
That is a Mike Vrabel, Vrabelese crack if I have ever heard one, which is nobody's asking about analytics. They're asking about injuries. It doesn't have anything to do with analytics. And there he is just like, well, I guess this completely non-related to analytics thing is like analytics, where they got to have X amount. My guess is Vrabel was like, all right, if we're going to spend all this time and money on analytics, and they brought in some Sarah Bailey to run analytics, and Chad Brinker is apparently in charge of analytics, and if they're going to build out this analytic department, Vrabel's probably like, all right, who should I take at guard? And it's like, oh, no, we don't have enough yet to be able to tell us that. And I'm sure he gets mad about it. I don't know. I know John Robinson didn't give a rat's ass about analytics. I know Bill Belichick at one point said that he used analytics less than 0. And so Rand Carthon comes over and is like, we're going to run analytics here. Remember, his big story about draft successes in San Francisco was working with the analytics department to identify Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. And there's Vrabel out of nowhere just taking a crack at analytics. So I know Vrabel says, think like me, or in order to think like me, just think the opposite. I know. But at the same time, I know how this guy takes shots. I know how he does it subtly. I know. And the reason why Mike Vrabel does this, and that Foxborough speech is no different, where he got up there and said, I've been plenty of places and it's not as good as it is here. Be lucky you've got it. And the reason why Vrabel does that is because Vrabel can't not do it. He can't not hold back. It's like, I'm not great at keeping secrets. I've gotten better as I've gotten older, but I'm still not very good at it. Ask anybody that I went to the 7th grade with, and they will tell you that I could not keep a secret. It's just something I'm not good at. So when somebody says, hey, can I tell you something? But it absolutely has to stay secret. My natural inclination is, I'd rather you not. As much as I want to know some of these things, as much as I'd rather not. Because I can't not tell it. I just can't. I mean, I guess I can, but it requires a lot of willpower to be able to do that. And that's the same with Vrabel taking pot shots. Whether it's at Paul, whether it's at Rand, whether it's at the analytics department, Vrabel can't not do it sometimes. When he's mad about something, he'll let you know. That's why yesterday, when everybody was like, oh, look at him, he's showing emotion. I'm like, what's that got to do with anything? Like, you thought Vrabel was cool with losing? I mean, I knew how he felt. That doesn't change his culpability for it. But, I mean, this is crazy talk over here. But I do, again, I know Vrabel, oh, no, we're good. I don't address the rumors. I'm above it. And I love working with Chad, A-Rob, Rand, and Johnny, and Cindy, and Sally, and Susie, and Skeeter, and everybody there. Love them. It's like Mitt Romney's family, right? It's like, I mean, they take those family pictures. They can't even fit in the iPhone frame anymore. That's, we got to shout everybody out. It's like they won an Oscar. And just tell us who the director is. That's all we care about. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. So, as somebody who has been bullied by Paul Kaharski many a time, I know it when I see it. And today, Paul Kaharski was trying to bully Rand Carthon on Robbie and Rex Road. But I'm not sure that Paul's wrong. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Hiller is the best. And if there's any HVAC issues you've ever got, Hiller is my choice. They're the best. I'm telling you, I've used them at my home for over 5 years now. We are headed on year 6. In fact, it was one of the first things I ever did when I moved into a house was join the Happy Hiller Club. And I have never had an issue with Hiller my entire life. In fact, it's so easy. You just go to happyhiller.com on your phone, and whether it's a plumbing issue, whether it's your AC, whether it's your heat, whether it's a electrical outlet. I mean, I had a bedroom fan installed one time, and I just went right to happyhiller.com, and I, boom, just put it right in there. Guy was there either the next day or a day later, and that's why I absolutely love them. And Hiller, the entire time that I have been using Hiller, has always treated me fairly with true transparency pricing. That's right. It's great. What it means is that Hiller will line item every item of every part of every job up front, so homeowners like me and you can easily understand what they're paying for and why. For example, itemizing parts and labor separately. No hidden fees, no added costs, no surprises when you get your bill, and they're not going to go out of their way to find things to fix. They're only going to do what you need. That's right. Learn more at happyhiller.com and get 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. And if a customer is not pleased with the work performed, they'll make it right. And you won't have to really do that because every time I've used them, it's been great. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller! Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Rand Carthon's got to sit in front of a podium and talk for a while. You know, not the laughy, backslappy talk, but like serious, tough questions. You ready, Rand, for serious, tough questions? Because the last 2 interviews you did were with a buddy from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for a story that was behind a paywall about your scouting days, and with Tehran about the great collaboration you have with Mike Vrabel.
Actually, correction. He did a interview with John Greenberg from The Athletic, my coworker, about Chad Brinker. Good story.
Oh, yeah. No, I read that. Yeah.
Good story.
Also, 3 stories that didn't address anything about the Titans struggling this year and the decisions that were made and not made.
That was PK earlier today on Robbie and Rex Road. And so you heard Paul right there. This has been something he's been on for a while, which is, why does Rand Carthon not talk to the media? He needs to talk to the media. And he's not wrong. When things are going well, it's easy for a general manager or a team president or even an owner to just stand idly by. Sometimes these teams win championships, and I'm like, I don't even know who the hell that is they're giving the Super Bowl trophy to. If the Dallas Cowboys win it, I'll know. But for instance, trying to think of a team off the top of my head, but if some of these teams win, they bring out the owner to give them the Super Bowl. Who the hell is that? Who is that? I like the Rangers won the World Series, and I'm like, who the hell is that? And so when you win, it's fine. Nobody has to talk. That's fine. When you lose, everybody has to be accountable. And Rand Carthon is no different. And Paul is right. Rand has not at any point addressed really the big questions that they have around here. And even in the ESPN.com article, a lot of the things that he said were just regurgitated quotes that he had from his initial press conference. As in, he's saying the same things about collaboration and his relationship with Mike Vrabel in December or November or whenever that was said, that he had said the previous January. You're telling me that in 9 months, 10 months of working with Mike Vrabel, your opinion hasn't changed at all? It's all the same lollipops and rainbows? Probably not. And so this morning, Paul used the platform that he has, that hour on Robbie and Rex Road, to essentially bully Rand Carthon into speaking at next week's end of the year press conference. I didn't go to yesterday's press conference with Vrabel because I knew he wasn't going to want to talk about the end of the season, why they screwed up on the offensive line, his offensive line coach. He wasn't going to want to talk about that. He was going to say, we're focused on Jacksonville. And that was going to be it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, next Monday, I will be there. And I hope Rand Carthon will be there as well. But Paul, today, is kind of trying to bully Rand Carthon into it. Here's what he said.
Yeah, it's about time for Rand to talk and get into that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you suspect he's going to?
Well, yeah. I mean, in
I would
Indy,
bet money.
He has to in Indy.
Indy. You know how far away Indy is?
No, I hope that, I really hope.
Suck it up and
next
show
week,
your
right?
face next week.
I agree. I hope so. I hope so. What are the odds
I
on
bet
that?
against.
What's the percentage?
My percentage?
Chance it happens, yeah.
8%.
92, no.
92%,
yes.
no.
I think it's.
I think he's cowering in his office at the thought of that. I do.
Yeah.
I think he's scared.
Hiding under the desk?
I think he's scared of the press here. This guy told us
Robinson
not to ask a question about Tyjae Spears' knee because it was the biggest day of his draft life.
Yes, I was there.
I mean, are you aware how media works?
Right there, when he says, I think he's scared of the Nashville media. That's not for me or you. And that's not what Paul really thinks. Paul does not think that Rand Carthon is scared of the media. That is a message to Rand Carthon. He is calling out Rand Carthon and basically trying to bully him into being at that press conference. That being said, I think Paul's right. I think that Rand Carthon has to take the tough questions. And as I've always said with all these press conferences, anybody can say whatever they want to say. So if Rand Carthon wants to get up there and yell at the media because he thinks it's our fault that we're being too negative when people kept asking him about Tajay Spears' knee and Will Levis's interceptions on the Friday night after the draft, that's his business. Doesn't mean I'm going to like it, but that is, in fact, his business. He can do whatever he wants. But this disappearing act of, oh, no, it's not my turn to talk. No. Not after the season. And I've actually defended Rand Carthon and his lack of visibility from this standpoint, which is I believe that he and Mike Vrabel have an agreement as to, hey, during the football season, that's coach season. The off season, that's GM season, and the coach will only talk when the coach has to talk. And part of that reason being that Vrabel didn't want to do it. Not that Vrabel's scared of the media. It's just, I think just like that pre-draft press conference last year, Vrabel don't want to do it. It's like, you go upstairs and deal with those a-holes for 40 minutes. I'll stay down here salivating over more Andre Dillard tape. Go ahead. And I think that's an agreement that they have. And so while we're sitting here saying, hey, when's Rand going to get up there and really explain what the hell happened with this offensive line, it's not his place to do it because he probably has an agreement with Vrabel. Willie Donick was actually asking me about this yesterday. We were just talking, and Willie was like, why does Rand never talk? And I said, well, he doesn't, this isn't his season to talk, and I think he and Vrabel have an agreement that it's not his season to talk. And Willie said, well, Floyd Reese used to do an hour on the radio every Friday. I said, right. And Floyd Reese was Jeff Fisher's boss. And when John Robinson felt the need to talk during the season, whether it was about whether or not they wore their masks for that COVID outbreak they had in 2020, whether it was when they traded Dorial Green Beckham for Dennis Kelly, whatever it may have been, when John Robinson felt the need to talk, John Robinson talked. But John Robinson had the authority to get up there and talk and speak for the team because he was Mike Vrabel's boss. It's like Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz can say whatever he wants on this program Tuesdays, 5 o'clock. You think Andrew Burnett has the authority to tell Barry Trotz no? No. Barry's his boss. But as it is well documented between Rand and Vrabel, Rand is not Vrabel's boss. So if he has an agreement with Mike Vrabel, and the agreement is that during the season Mike Vrabel talks, then I understand why Rand Carthon's not talking even after the controversial Kevin Byard trade. But on Monday, the season is over. And you can't say in the ESPN article that it'll be my time after the season, and then after the season not speak to the media. And I do wonder how Rand Carthon is going to handle a press conference when it is not all sunshine and lollipops. When you lose, it's a lot easier to get called out on your bull crap. And Rand has fired away a bunch of it so far. For instance, we had to get Kevin Byard to redo his contract to fit DeAndre under the cap. That's not true. Like, factually, that's not true. But he said it. People believed it. You're not going to be able to do that this go-round. The idea of who's responsible for Andre Dillard or the disappointing season that Peter Skoronski has had or Aaron Brewer with a second-round tender, there is no fudging that when he gets in front of the media this go-around. The rumors about him and Vrabel, there is no fudging that either. And so, I mean, I get what Paul's doing by, again, kind of trying to use the platform. This was not, I don't think Paul actually thinks that Rand Carthon is scared of the local media. But I do think what he's doing is he's saying that because he's trying to coerce him into being at next week's press conference. I mean, he might as well, talking about Paul, he might as well have just said on the radio, he's a chicken. Like that, he might as well have done that. Like when you're 8 years old and you call somebody a chicken. But he does have a point. Rand does need to be at that press conference. It's time for Rand to face the music. Because regardless of if this works out, like let's say he and Vrabel really are bestie pops, as Caroline would say. Let's say they are. Well, then you need to tell us that. And you need to explain it. And again, whatever you say, I may not like what he says, but it's time for him to go on the record. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, we will get to some of your phones here again on the commission, the collaboration. Vrabel's all happy, him and Rand and Chad and A-Rob, and how he can't go 5 seconds without mentioning all of them. I mean, this is not a boy band, right? It's not like, hey, Justin is the main guy, but we got to, give a shout out to Lance and JC. Oh, what's the other one's name? There's two, aren't there? Lance, JC, Justin.
Who is this? Backstreet Boys?
No, this is NSYNC.
Oh, NSYNC. Yeah, I don't know. Boy bands aren't my thing.
I feel I should have people do not text into the text line.
Oh, there's definitely going to be people in
do
the
not
text
do
or
that
the
because I
YouTube
want to
chat.
read texts about the Titans. But every time that he gives me this Chad and Rand and A-Rob, it's like, dude, we don't care about them. Okay? We don't care about the assistants, right? No offense. Those guys make plenty of money, and I'm sure those guys have jobs. But we don't care. We care what the people who are in charge have to say. That's what we care about. And we don't evaluate the job that the assistants do. We evaluate your job. And that's why you live in a bigger house and make more money. That's why. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every day, everybody here has something to prove, And again, it goes back to what I said about, the draft picks and the free agents that we signed. And you look at 3 of our leaders, you look at Ryan. Everybody was trying to cash Ryan off in the offseason, making my life hard, whether we were keeping him or not keeping him.
You were keeping Ryan Tannehill. You said that from the start.
But, Ryan has something to prove to the people. The current market of running backs and what they should or, are not making. Derek has something to prove. We had our talks with KB, in the offseason about a pay cut, if you will. So KB has something to prove. You know what I mean? And even Jeff getting his extension, traditionally people say that guys get paid, they get comfortable, and they don't play the same. So Jeff's got something to prove. So everybody on this team has something to prove, to show the world that they are who they are and that they can still play at a high level in this league.
That is one of my favorite cuts. Rand Carthon sitting there talking about everybody's got something to prove. Johnny, you're too fat. You got to prove that you can lose weight. Stevie, I'm not even going any further. You got to prove. You got to prove. What has Rand proven? Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. David has been waiting patiently and is up next on the program. What's up, David?
Hey, thank you. Thanks for taking my call. First, kudos to the Preds. They played awesome last night.
Don't tell Robbie Stanley that. Or Ian. Go ahead, David.
It was a great game. It was exciting. Hey, here's my question. If Vrabel stays, what exactly can he do next season that he didn't do this season when he had plenty of opportunities? Developing new quarterbacks, addressing some other positions. We had some veteran players and still felt flat. And I'll hang up and take your
thank you for your call, David. That's a very good question. So here's what's happening. So I don't think the Titans can win next year with Vrabel and Rand Carthon in place. And so if I owned the Titans, I'd be trying to work out a deal to trade Vrabel, and I'd fire Rand Carthon, and I'd move on from there. And I know that a lot of people don't agree with me. I think I ran a poll on Twitter, and 51%, although it was initially like 42%, and then it skyrocketed at the very, very end. I don't know who was retweeting what. But 51% of the people on Twitter said that they would keep Vrabel and keep Rand Carthon. And then it was about even that would fire both of them and would keep Rand and fire Vrabel. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, if it were me, I'd fire both of them. It is probably more likely than not, though I have no sourcing on this, it is probably more likely than not that they are going to retain both Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon, which is disappointing, but I understand. If they do, I don't think they're going to be very good next year because I think it's going to be the same guys who screwed up the offensive line. I mean, royally screwed up this year. Like, they blew it. They went into this knowing their number one goal was to fix the offensive line, and they fired the offensive line coach, and the best they could do was elevating some assistant coach who has no NFL experience and going out and signing Andre Dillard and drafting Peter Skoronski. That was the answer. They made the line worse. Their number one task, and they blew it. So I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to fix it. But I'm also not going to sit here on the radio once they announce that they are coming back and just pretend like, well, it doesn't matter what they draft because they're going to lose anyways. I'm not going to do that. Not only would it be incredibly depressing, but football is a day-to-day activity nowadays. So to answer your question, if they bring Vrabel back, and let's just put them both together, Vrabel and Carthon, and let me say this. If Amy Adams Strunk said, Jared, I am keeping Rand Carthon come hell or high water, do you still want to trade or fire Vrabel? I'd have second thoughts, only because you're going to run into this cycle of, okay, you fired the GM because you blame him but not the coach. Then you fire the coach because you blame him but not the GM. So then this GM gets to hire a coach. And so then after that, when he drafts another guard in the first round, you're going to fire him. And then you're going to have – so, I hate this cycle. So I guess I would say, well, let's just keep them and then have a bad year next year and fire both of them at the same time, which isn't what I would do. But, again, it's not my team. But to answer your question, if they both come back, what's the first thing they got to do? I think Mike Vrabel and Amy Adams Strunk have to go hat in hand to Mike Munchak and say, what will it take for you to be the offensive line coach here? That's what they have to do. And you have to give him the assistant head coach title. So you're going to have to pay him, and you're going to have to give him an assistant head coach title, and Vrabel's just going to have to trust that he can work with Mike Munchak. Now, Mike Munchak has worked well with Mike Tomlin before. He's worked well with Jeff Fisher. He's worked well with, I want to say, Fangio in Denver. So I think he can get along. But Vrabel's going to have to suck it up. And every offensive line decision they make, they're going to have to run by Mike Munchak. That would be the first thing. Here's the problem, though. I don't see Vrabel wanting to do that, and I don't know if Amy's going to pay for that. You know, there's a lot of hat in hand. I mean, this isn't, again, when it comes to Munchak, or, you know, and I really liked Russ Grimm, who is Mike Mularkey's offensive line coach, again, another Hall of Fame player. When it comes to Munchak, like, this isn't a Vrabel brings him in, and this is a Amy and Vrabel go to his front door, and they knock on it with their hats in hand and a giant checkbook, and they say, please, Munchak, let bygones be bygones. It was my brother-in-law who screwed you over, not me. They're not in it anymore. Please, Mike Munchak, save this franchise. And then it's Mike Vrabel saying, hey, you're going to have authority on the offensive line. And that's what I think that's what they have to do. That's the first step. And I know, you know, that's going to take adjusting for Vrabel. It's going to take adjusting for Tim Kelly. But I think this is almost like the Jim Schwartz thing, right? Where probably wasn't Vrabel's idea to bring in Jim Schwartz, but in order to pass it off to ownership when he decided to elevate Shane Bowen, it was probably like, hey, we need to bring in Jim Schwartz, and we need to, you know, we'll bring him in as an advisor, and Jimmy will be able to, and clearly Jim Schwartz had an effect. And I know Jim Schwartz is a great coach, and I know that they trust Jim Schwartz, and I feel the same way about Munchak and the offensive line. And instead of, well, we're just going to bring him in here to go get coffee in the back room and let him hang around the facility. That's what Joe says Jim Schwartz did, that they let him hang around the facility like he was a freaking intern. Please. Have you seen the defense post Jim Schwartz? I also love the idea that Jim Schwartz, and Joe and Paul share this, Jim Schwartz is not responsible for the Cleveland Browns' success on defense. He's like, oh no, they have the players. Oh no, what about the head coach? You mean the head coach that was there last year that entered this year on the hot seat? Him? You mean the players they had last year? Myles Garrett was there last year. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was there last year. Denzel Ward was there last year. Grant Delpit was there last year. So all the players they had last year that was finished 14th in the league in defense, the same head coach, a revolving door at quarterback, the one difference maker, they don't even have their running back. The one difference maker is Jim Schwartz. And you're telling me that Jim Schwartz didn't matter that much? Please with that. And so I think that I look at Munchak as kind of the Jim Schwartz of the offensive line. And so you asked what's the first thing to do that's the first thing. And it's going to be a lot of swallowing of pride and writing of checks. And that's not the first check you're going to have to write. Or I shouldn't say that's not the biggest check you're going to have to write. That's the first check you're going to have to write. The second check is you're going to have to go out in free agency and probably sign 5 new offensive linemen. And you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, 5 new offensive linemen? Well, Skoronski's already there, and you guys are going to try to fudge yourself into believing that, you know, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, a.k.a.
PT.
That PT can play right tackle. What? No. You need backups. You need starters. And you need guys that can be like those fringe kind of Azeez Al-Shaair players that are probably better suited as backups, but you can put them in there to start if they have to. You're going to have to sign those guys too. And that's going to be a lot of money. But again, that's if you want to be better next year. If you want to be the same, by all means, go sign other teams' first-round busts and see what happens. 615-737-1025 on this show, 615-737-1025 today on Stillman and Company. And I do wonder this. I do wonder if there is how do I say this? I do wonder if maybe Mike Vrabel, now he denied it today, but I do wonder if maybe Mike Vrabel is playing offense behind the scenes. We'll get into that. Hey, make your silly underdog picks for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at theGameNashville.com or the 102.5 The Game app. Silly Underdog Picks is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and we are broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios.
I really have never responded to any of those, and we're not going to start now. I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Ran and Chad and A-Rob and a coaching staff and everybody.
There you go. That was Vrabel today. Again, I like Ran and Chad and A-Rob and the coaching staff, not just Ran. Okay. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I do wonder, is Vrabel innocent in all these rumors? Because there have been a lot of rumors, right? And every time a rumor comes out about the Titans, it's always the Titans basically said, that's not true, right? There was the rumor about draft night and wanting to trade up to number 3 for C.J. Stroud. And then the Texans, ended up finding out about it since Diana Rossini went on TV and told everybody. And the Texans ended up drafting him. That's not true. That's not true. They shopped Derrick Henry at the combine. That's not true. The Kevin Byard and the pay cut and the requesting the release. That's not true. And then they traded him months away. Anyways, everything with this team, that's not true. Lombardi comes out. That's not true. Ian, have you noticed this? Every rumor that comes out about the Titans is not true.
They're just rumors.
Sure. Rob texts in and says, I am so tired of the collaboration talk. Do we really know who the hell is in charge? The answer, by the way, to that is no. Rand spoke around draft time and apparently didn't like what he said about taking it easy on the rookie players during draft time and hasn't spoken since. Rand did speak before the start of training camp, which is the GM's job. And I believe he also spoke before the season, which I also think is required by the NFL. He also said he didn't know how to look for a kicker, which was something. Aside from the out-of-town media, the whole setup in this entire year has been deflating and absolutely embarrassing, Rob says. They definitely lost another season ticket member in me. Well, that's your business. Look, man, there's going to be ups and downs. I get it. And then there will be ups. And if those days ever come again, it will be nice. But I understand the sentiment there. And I do think, again, I think that Rand needs to talk, if for no other reason. This is not a court of law, and the jury is not bound by what they should think. They're allowed to think what they do think. And if Rand Carthon doesn't talk on Monday, then I think there's going to be a lot of people that think that either he's just a pawn, or that he's ducking the media, or that he's unaccountable. And there will be no way, after he didn't talk after the Byard trade, there will be no way to undo that. And that's just how it is. One texter into the text line says, when it comes to the Titans and Rand Carthon, says, I am so tired of how the Titans just constantly tell us everything is not true. At some point, I'd like to know exactly how these guys feel and it not be some rehearsed press conference line. I agree. Texter says, it seems like Rand walked into this job thinking that this team needed a rebuild instead of a team that could potentially contend, and that's where he and Vrabel butt heads. Every now and then somebody says something to me that isn't exactly profound, but it's so basic that I hear it and I almost lock onto it, right? Like I hear it and I'm like, wow, like I can't unhear this. In fact, that's what's happened. That's why I got so mad about the Peter Skoronski pick and why I'm so hard on Skoronski, because the old man said, if you draft a guard in the top 10, he better be going right to the Pro Bowl and on his way to the Hall of Fame every year. And Skoronski is far from that. So I heard that probably 7 years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. Well, when the ESPN article came out about the collaboration between Vrabel and Rand Carthon, there was a line in there from Vrabel that was like, well, we do have our disagreements, but we figure it out and move on. And Chad Withrow, and this is the thing that, again, wasn't profound, but was pretty direct, and it stuck with me about Vrabel and Rand. Chad Withrow goes, well, what are the disagreements? Because if your basic disagreement is, well, he wanted to put Colton Dowell on the roster with the last spot, and I really wanted to put Otis Reese on the roster with the last spot. Well, that's one thing, right? Like, ultimately, you can say, okay, fine, if you really want Colton Dowell on the roster, you can put Colton Dowell on the roster. But if it is well, I wanted to trade Derrick Henry, and he didn't want to trade Derrick Henry, now that's different. That's different, right? I wanted to rebuild. I wanted to tear it down. I wanted to get rid of Tannehill. I wanted to get rid of Henry. I wanted to focus on next year, and he didn't. And see, what happens is if you have those kind of disagreements and you win, it doesn't matter. But if you have those kind of disagreements and you lose, then those things will be resented for forever. then it'll be like, how can I trust this freaking guy? Let's use Andre Dillard as the example. We have no idea who wanted Andre Dillard. As I have said many times, I have a hard time imagining that Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon were both in their office watching tapes of potential tackle candidates, knowing that they had to get a tackle. And that as they watched the tape in their office, they both walked down the hall to each other and just looked at each other and said, okay, you say it first. All right, one, we'll say it together. 1, 2, 3. Andre Dillard! I have a hard time envisioning that. So somebody probably wanted Andre Dillard and probably talked the other person into it. Who wanted Andre Dillard? Let's say, for argument's sake, that Vrabel wanted Andre Dillard. Could you see Rand Carthon holding that against him for forever? On the pregame show a couple weeks ago, Derek Mason let it be known that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers in the first round. How Derek knows that, he wouldn't share. But all Derek would share is that he knew that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers in the first round. Zay Flowers was available with the 11th overall pick, and Zay Flowers is not on the Tennessee Titans. Zay Flowers is really freaking good. So let's say that Mike Vrabel wanted to draft Peter Skoronski. If you're Rand Carthon, how much would you resent the fact when you watched the ball hit Traylon Burks in the hands? How much would you resent the fact that you wanted Zay Flowers? In critical spots this season, when you can't separate or you've got Nick Westbrook-Akine out there, how badly do you wish you had Zay Flowers? And that leads to resentment. So again, they have disagreements. What are the disagreements? And that does matter. Texter says, mark my words, the entire recycled Houston Texans Vrabel regime will be gone by preseason of next year. It's sickening that all of our coaches are former Texan coaches and that the Titans are way worse than they were when they were all there with Bill O'Brien. Tim Kelly, Shane Bowen. Howdeling, the offensive line coach, isn't a Texans coach. Rob Moore's not a Texans coach. Tony Dews is not a Texans coach. But I get the point. I mean, they won a lot of games before they traded away A.J. Brown. Which I have, I think it's fascinating how A.J. Brown is like tearing that team apart right now. I'm like, well, I mean, John Robinson wasn't totally wrong. It just took a little bit around it to materialize. 615-737-1025. Mike Vrabel says today he wants to be here. And that is not nothing. Him going on the record and saying, I want to be here. So what does that mean for him? And what does that mean for the coaching market? Hey, tomorrow it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexro tomorrow morning at 8:45. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your house seen, heard, and sold. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. So you heard in Ian's update, Mike Vrabel saying, of course I want to be here. Even though Mike Lombardi, former NFL general manager, strong Patriot ties, his relationship with Belichick goes all the way back to when they were together in Cleveland before the Browns moved to Baltimore and the Browns had to start a new franchise again, and Belichick went to New England. That's how long they've been together for. He was the general manager with the Raiders when they traded Randy Moss to the Patriots. So he's got a lot of that Patriot blood in there. And so today, Mike Vrabel, put on the spot, asked, hey, do you want to be here? Because the rumors are that you don't want to be there. Said, of course I want to be here. Now, make of that what you will. I remember when Nick Saban said that, of course, he wasn't going to take the Alabama job. He's the coach of the Dolphins. Saban would later go on to say that, what was I supposed to say there? What am I going to sit there and say with a team that's behind me, say, yeah, I'm thinking about this other job? Makes sense to me. And so I don't know what this means for Vrabel. I don't know what it means for the Titans. I don't know if it means anything. And then there's the NFL market as well, right? So does it mean that Mike Vrabel is off the market? Greg Bedard at the Boston Sports Journal came out a couple weeks ago and said that apparently Gerard Mayo has been rubbing people wrong inside the Patriots organization. As Joe Rexrode pointed out when Bedard had the comments about Vrabel and Rand Carthon here, he thinks that Bedard is tied in with the Kraft family. So if Bedard is reporting that Mayo is not a lock for that job because he's rubbing people the wrong way, well, now that does affect the job market, right? Because if Mayo's out, and I can't see Robert Kraft, I mean, I guess he could, but Robert Kraft, decides he wants to get into the Ben Johnson market, which I'd have a hard time with, Vrabel seems like the most logical candidate to take over the job from Belichick. He's not Belichick. He's not a Belichick disciple. He's not old. And yet he's still got that winning Patriot blood in him. And that would make sense. But if Vrabel's off the market, then does that change what the Patriots decide to do or not do? Now, when it comes to the Patriots, I'm convinced that they will, in fact, fire Bill Belichick after this game. Like, there's all this speculation now of, well, could they go out and get a GM? And if they get a GM and Bill gives up player control, Bill could still be the coach. And I don't buy any of that. I think it's time to move on. I think Kraft knows it's time to move on. And I think in his heart, Bill knows that he screwed up enough that, like, dude, you don't get 50 years anymore. It is what have you done for me lately? And Tom winning the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay was not a good look for Belichick. I think he knows that. But again, how does this affect the coaching market? Right now, where we sit, how many open jobs are there? There's 3. There's Carolina, there's the Chargers, and there's the Raiders. Okay? Add in New England is very likely to be open. That's 4. Then everybody else is kind of a question mark. I thought Chicago was a foregone conclusion that they would fire Matt Eberflus, and they should fire Matt Eberflus. Now, I'm not trying to farm their land, but Chicago, Ian, I don't know if you've been following this, but Chicago, it's getting crazy around there. They've got the number 1 pick.
Yep.
And now Justin Fields is starting to play better.
Yep.
And so the fans are demanding that Justin Fields stay the quarterback.
They have DJ Moore, yep.
Even though Caleb Williams is supposed to be like this for sure 1-1 quarterback, I said on Friday that it was a foregone conclusion that Caleb Williams would be selected number 1 overall by the Chicago Bears. And now, I don't know. I still think Williams will be, but
you never know.
Ian Rappaport reported over the weekend Matt Eberflus is likely to keep his job.
I saw that.
So now we're at 4. We thought it'd be 5 with Chicago, but I guess they're out. It's not a lot of jobs. I'm a little surprised by it. There's Arthur Smith on the hot seat in Atlanta. New Orleans, Dennis Allen. Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles. All could be issues there. But I'm trying to figure out maybe part of the reason why Vrabel said that he wanted to be here is because there may not be a job for Vrabel that's available outside of the Patriots, and that's if the Patriots want to trade him in the job market. But here's the one thing that I do remember when it comes to jobs and rumors and speculation and everything else. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I don't know if you guys know that. Ian, do you know that?
A little, yeah.
I'm a big Star Trek fan. And one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition is hear everything, believe nothing. And when it comes to all these rumors and all this talk and everything else, I'm reminded of the Mike Mularkey situation. The Titans were hosting Jacksonville at the end of the regular season. Just like how this Titans team is hosting Jacksonville at the end of the regular season. And the year was 2017. And that morning, and there had been rumblings about Mularkey. The fans were unhappy, and they hated Terry Robisky, and they had lost some games down the stretch. But I didn't think that anybody would overlook the fact that the Titans were absolute dog crap before Mularkey took over, and they've been pretty decent since he became the coach. And the morning before the Jacksonville game, all the insiders, Jay Glazer and Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all those guys started talking on the Sunday shows about how, because the Titans were win and they're in against Jacksonville. And they all started talking. If the Titans don't win this week, Mike Mularkey is out. Like, definitively, he's out. And I thought that was a little ridiculous, but okay. Then they won. Then going into the Kansas City game, it was, if they don't win this Kansas City game, Mike Mularkey is out. And I didn't agree with that at all. Because I'm like, you got to the playoffs. Like, this is the NFL. The playoffs are special. The playoffs are sacred in the NFL. And this was when only 6 teams went from each conference. Are you going to fire the coach? You haven't been to the playoffs in a decade. You don't fire the freaking coach over that? And then they won. And at the time, I was working with Floyd, and you know how Floyd felt about the media. He thought everything the media said was a lie. And at the time, he brushed off the rumors. Before the Jacksonville game, no. Before the Chiefs game, no. I didn't believe any of it. I wasn't really sure what to believe. And so I was keeping my eye on the rumors, but I wasn't convinced they would fire Mularkey. It didn't make any sense to me that they would fire Mularkey, and I thought the owner loved Mularkey. So they win the game when they beat the Chiefs. And at the very end of the game, Sean McDonough and John Gruden are calling it for ESPN, and Sean McDonough goes, "Take Mike Mularkey off the hot seat." Little did he know. The Titans released a statement the next day after all of the rumors and gossip and bullcrap, and the Titans released a statement that said, Mike Mularkey is our coach going forward. Then they lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots. No foul there. Then they fired him. Again, hear everything, trust nothing. The mistake I made was that I trusted the Titans statement after they beat the Chiefs. I thought, you know what? He probably did enough to keep the job. You can't fire a coach who wins a playoff game for a franchise for the first time in like 15 years. And the Titans are saying that he's the coach. And I didn't know what to believe before that, but I didn't believe they'd fire him after the Chiefs game until he got up there after they won. And he said, oh, I haven't had any support. I don't know what's going to. I mean, Mularkey called him out. And good for him, by the way. Didn't help him, but still good for him. But then I listened. And the truth was, again, hear everything, believe nothing. So when Mike Vrabel says he wants to be here, I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if Vrabel was just backed into a corner and there was nothing he could do about it. I have no idea. But the one thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I know what's going to happen or I know how Amy feels or I don't any of that. I know how I feel. And I do not own the team. And I do not make those decisions. And if I owned this football team, you would not have any inkling that on Monday I'd be firing both of them. No inkling. And they wouldn't either. So again, today the news is Vrabel says he wants to be here. But who the hell knows what that means? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this coming up next. Twice Daily wants to send you to Italy. That's right. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app and get entered to win. Every sub is a chance to win, and a mobile-ordered Italian sub counts as 2 times the entries. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. You know, Twice Daily, everywhere you go, they'll make you that sub right there the way you want it. Twice Daily's made-to-order offerings allow you to get exactly what you want when you want it. And so you can customize sandwiches with your preferred meats and cheeses and bagels with all the fixings and snacks for you prepared the second you order. You make it yours, they'll make it fresh. That's Twice Daily. Again, download the Twice Daily app and join their loyalty program to unlock special discounts, savings, and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, that's my spot. Fresh all day.
Of course I want to be here. Be here as long as we can win and long as we can, do this thing. And it's been great, but it also has been, just frustrating this year. And nobody wants to be where we're at.
That was Vrabel earlier today saying, of course I want to be here. There's all the rumors that are out there about you here and you there. And again, the Boston Sports Journal reported that Gerard Mayo has rubbed some people in the building the wrong way. That's from Greg Bedard. Rexroad is convinced that Bedard is in tight with the Crafts. By the way, it should be noted that Rexroad told the story that at that Patriots-Mike Mularkey game, that Greg Bedard told him that the Titans were going to fire Mike Mularkey. And this was right after the Titans had said, we are not firing Mike Mularkey. So at least he's gotten something right that people around here weren't ready for. So make of that what you will. I do wonder this. If not the Patriots, where? The Chargers, I think, would make sense for Vrabel because they have a quarterback. But at the same time, the Chargers are traditionally a cheap organization. And, well, they probably want an offensive coach. Sean McVay's kicking so much butt with the Rams. They've got a quarterback. I mean, I think that they would be in play for a guy like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick or one of these, offensive gurus with the latte and the tight pants. It's not exactly Vrabel, who every time his team is on offense bends over at the waist and looks like he's about to throw up in the toilet. The Raiders are probably going to stick with Antonio Pierce. I'm going to guess that 2 out of the 3 jobs in the NFC South will be open. We already know Carolina's going to be open, and that makes no sense for Vrabel. I don't think Vrabel would have any interest in working for that moron owner out there in Carolina. He pays a lot, but sometimes we get caught up in the money too much. And I'm not saying the money's not important, because the money's important. But sometimes we think about the money like that's all that matters. And I remember Coach Shoup last year after he got fired at South Florida, and he was like, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with nobody to coach. And I think Vrabel's that kind of guy. Wakes up in the morning if he's not working, even if he's getting paid $8 million to not work, that wakes up in the morning like, well, what do I do today? And that can be very hard for some of these people. So at Carolina, there's no stability there, and you have to answer to that a-hole owner, and so I don't think he'd have any interest in that. And then, would Atlanta make sense? Like, they just fired a Vrabel protege, so I don't think Atlanta would probably make a lot of sense. New Orleans could make sense for Vrabel. Derek Carr's the quarterback, which I'm sure he would hate, but it could probably get around that. And then other than that, I don't know what jobs are going to be open. And then there's the wild card jobs. Now, this is where Vrabel could come into play. I think Buffalo is a wild card job. They probably would go offensive coach just because Sean McDermott has had such a bad time trying to figure out offensive coordinator after Brian Daboll left. And then the Steelers, which are the ultimate wild card because the Steelers hate firing coaches, but it does feel like the fans are tired of Mike Tomlin. Vrabel is that kind of Steeler-like coach, right? Cowher, Tomlin, leader, alpha, and he's got Steeler blood in him. Remember, he was drafted by the Steelers. So I'd keep an eye there. I don't know if Vrabel and Tampa meet if that job comes open. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Texter says, Jared, sometimes you don't think everything through. That is that you are subject to straight line thought, like last year's draft. The Titans were pretty successful. They got a good young starting quarterback prospect, a good young running back, and a starting guard, in quotation marks, the texter writes, with the first 3 picks. Of course, they had to give up a 3rd-round pick and a 24th third-round pick to move up for Levis, but there was little money available by the owner for free agents. Just think, if they had been successful in moving up in the 1st round to get their desired quarterback and got some free agent pickups with proper draft fortune, doubt their record would be any better this year with that offensive line. If they are going to depend on the draft to build the future of the roster in time for the new stadium and limit spending on old free agents, then they are in as about as good of a shape as they could be. How was this me not thinking things through? Like, this is an assumption that the owner told them that they couldn't spend any money, which might be true. And this is an assumption that the owner is not going to be willing to spend money until they move into the new stadium, which I have no idea of knowing if that's true or not. I think it's probably not. I think the Titans are going to be big spenders in free agency this year. If for no other reason, it's because they can't be. Like, they can't not be big spenders in free agency this year, or else you people are going to go nuts, and they know it. Now, I hope they don't do, the teams that were big spenders in free agency last year were the Bears and the Falcons, and that hasn't necessarily made them into Super Bowl contenders. But, again, they couldn't not spend, and that's where you are. But this idea that, like, they couldn't do any better, Jared. They couldn't do any better than what they've got out of Peter Skoronski? Seriously? You could have traded that pick. You could have traded back and picked up more players. You could have done a lot of things. That's better than a frickin' guard who stinks. And right now, Skoronski stinks. And I see people on Twitter that are like, boy, I hope he's injured because that would explain why he sucks so bad right now. And then there's everybody else out there. He's just a rookie, Jared. He had an appendectomy, Jared. I talked to somebody the other day, granted, not an NFL offensive lineman, had an appendectomy and then went on college spring break to Tijuana the next day. An appendectomy is not like a massive shoulder surgery, okay? The appendix comes out, you're in bed for about a week, then you get out, then you, again, probably put some weight back. That was September. It is January. Texture says, what makes Vrabel such a lock to be a head coach somewhere? His reputation for being a good coach? You said yesterday that defensive-minded head coaches that fail are hired as DCs for offensive-minded head coaches. Again, like a Vic Fangio. I think Vrabel will be here next year, and then if his ego isn't too big, he would be better off taking a DC job somewhere for a better coach. Here's why Vrabel is a lock to get a head coaching job if he was fired. And I absolutely think he would. I don't think anybody is lying to you when they say, if you fire Mike Vrabel, he'll get a job tomorrow. Vrabel's had a little success as a head coach. The failings of this team, from an outside standpoint, I believe, have been put on John Robinson. And quite frankly, most importantly, because he won 3 Super Bowls for the Patriots, and people just think he's some great leader. That's why. What we know about Vrabel, when it comes to his inability to find an offensive line coach or accept reality with Craig Ackerman until it's too late, these other teams don't follow that. Just like we don't know. Like, we don't really know why Arthur Smith stinks so bad in Atlanta. And I know you guys will say, well, he's not giving Bijan Robinson the ball enough. But you don't really know that, right? You don't watch the Falcons. You don't know, who's the Falcons offensive coordinator? Ian, do you know who the Falcons offensive coordinator is?
No.
I think it's Dave Ragone. And I only know that because Dave Ragone used to coach here, and Dave Ragone also did talk radio in Louisville.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. But
I guess because Arthur Smith calls the plays.
Yeah, but I have no idea if Dave Ragone's any good.
Yeah,
I don't know who their defensive coordinator is. I don't know who's on their defense. I don't know anything.
He had Dean Pease at one point, didn't he?
He did, but Dean's not there anymore. I don't know. I don't know why Arthur's not, because I don't follow that team. And the other 31 owners don't follow this team the way we do. That's why Vrabel's a lock to get a head coaching job. Vrabel's absolutely a lock to get a head coaching job. Fitz will join us next. His reaction to the rumors, his reaction to what Vrabel has said about those rumors. We'll do that coming up next here on Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. They take great care of my home. They've done it for now almost 6 years. That's right. And I would never, ever, ever think about using anybody else other than Hiller. Why? Because they are fantastic. They've got 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be, your service is free, and that's their guarantee. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, they'll make it right. But again, in my experience with Hiller, you don't have to worry about that. You can learn more about all that at happyhiller.com, and you can learn about true transparency pricing. What that means is Hiller will line item every item of every part of the job up front so that a homeowner can easily understand what they're paying for and why. For example, they'll itemize the parts, and then they'll itemize the labor. That way, when your AC goes out or something, it's not a, oh, well, we fixed it, we need 10 grand. No, it's a, here's why this will cost as much as it costs, which I am so thankful for. No hidden fees, no added cost, no surprises when you get your bill. That's right. My guys, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds. You see that logo right there at center ice at Bridgestone Arena. Proud supporters of Vandy and the Vols. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
I really have never responded to any of those, and we're not going to start now. I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Ran and Chad and A-Rob and a coaching staff and everybody.
There you go. That was Vrabel today saying, no, I want to be here and I don't get into the rumors, and I love Rand and Chad and Anthony Robinson and the coaching staff, which, again, every time he's asked about Rand and personnel, he always makes sure to mention Chad Brinker and Anthony Robinson, whether it was in November when I asked him about how they screwed up on the offensive line or in the ESPN.com article. Jason Fitz joins us now on the program, Fox Sports Radio and Yahoo Sports. So, Fitz, let's start with this. You were kind of the first one that kind of lit the ignition on the Vrabel and Rand Carthon stuff that I am just convinced there is too much smoke on. But Vrabel says he's happy here and he's happy working with Rand Carthon. Do you buy it? What do you think?
So I sort of buy it. Is that an answer? But here's the thing. Let's peel behind the curtain here. I knew we were going to talk about this today. So I have spent hours today reaching out to every person that I think is plugged in a smart way across the league, not just with the Titans, to get a gauge on this. And the interesting thing is, frankly, the national people I've talked to, when I ask a very simple question of what's going on with Vrabel, I get a very split answer. But the other part of it is, there does seem everybody brings this relationship up. So, like, while I want to take, what else is he going to say? He's not going to stand there and be like, well, I hate everything that's going on here. We have to acknowledge that. I want to be able to take the man at his word because, frankly, that's why he's sitting there speaking. But at the same time, the number of times today I heard Rand Carthon's name when asking about Mike Vrabel, to me, that says something. Like, there is a real, at least national conversation about who truly has the power, whether or not Vrabel ever wanted any of this to happen, what level of power he thinks he should have. Like, these are all real conversations they're having from people like there's a difference between a blowhard sitting there yelling at somebody on TV versus people that actually do reporting. And the people that I've talked to that do reporting all agree that there is some weirdness in that relationship.
Okay, so when you bring up Vrabel to these people, do they go right to Carthon? Do you bring up Carthon? Like, give me kind of the spectrum.
I never once today said Rand Carthon's name first to anybody. So that's the stunning part of it. Because here's what happens. Like, one person I talked to today, I said, here's the point blank. I told all of them, I said, I'm going to survey you anonymously because I trust your work. My question is very simple. Is Mike Vrabel going to be the head coach in Tennessee? Now, I got quick yes, no's from some people, but one person specifically right away said, if he wants to, but a lot of that's going to depend on what this power structure looks like with Rand. That's the first thing that was said. And I'm like, okay, go on. And then you get he didn't really want this relationship. Now, not sure if they were on board with this relationship. He wants to have more power over the roster and the way the roster is going. And that was one of, 4 or 5 times that Rand's name came up from different people. I probably talked to a dozen people that I think are really qualified and 4 or 5 other people that I think are lightly qualified, if that makes sense. And the number of times Rand, but I never from me first, always from Vrabel's got to decide if he wants to work with Rand Carthon. Always couched that way.
Yeah, wow. What would you say the percentage of the people that say Vrabel will be back as compared to the percentage of people that say Vrabel won't be?
Almost split down the middle. But here's the smartest thing I heard all day, and it really changed my mindset because we've talked about this a lot. The smartest thing I heard all day from one person, I told him I was going to steal this statement, is he said, in the NFL, we like to make really complicated things simple. And the fact is, they're really complicated. And as he pointed out, he was basically saying, to the question of will Mike Vrabel be back? Well, the answer to that depends on what jobs come open. But the answer to that is even complicated in and of itself, because if we think Belichick's not going to be with New England, is somebody going to trade for Belichick? So if Belichick's going to be traded for, then are the Patriots going to turn around and make a trade for Mike Vrabel? All of these complications not only make things difficult, they also take time. They take a lot of different bricks to fall in place. And so the answer, the person I talked to that said that probably took a minute. I was talking to him. Probably took a minute of silence after I answered the question. And is Vrabel going to be back? And after about a minute of silence, he said, I think so, but mostly because it's just too complicated to find a way for him not to.
Jason Fitz is with us. Fitz, when it comes to the power dynamic between Vrabel and Carthon, when they started this, there was kind of this big secret. Everyone was trying to figure out who has final say. And I was convinced that there was not a final say. That it was, hey, you two, I want you two to work together, and you two will figure it out. And where we sit today, I kind of waffled on that because I should have known better, but I let Kuharski convince me that Vrabel was in charge. And now I've kind of gone back to where I originally was. I keep hearing all these conflicting reports, right? Like some people will say, Vrabel runs the Titans. And then other people will say, Vrabel's not happy with the amount of control he has on the Titans. And then, D-Mace throws out there that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers in the first round and not Peter Skoronski. And so I don't know, do people think Vrabel's in charge of the Titans, or do they think Rand's in charge of the Titans, or what do they think?
I think your initial reaction of the two of them were just told to figure it out Seems fairly accurate from everything I talk to, from everybody I talk to. And here's the problem with that. Let's go back to my music days. We'll use a music analogy for this. If you look at Rascal Flatts, there's three guys, right? So if Rascal Flatts has an argument, there's always going to be a tie-breaking vote, no matter what. If you look at somebody like Dan and Shay Shay's a duo. And Dan and Shay's been very public about the fact that they almost broke up about a year ago for a myriad of reasons, one of which was creative. Think about what happens when you have two people. When you say work it out.
Well, isn't that what happened to Florida-Georgia line?
Right, exactly. You have two people and you say, hey, guys, work it out. Well, I want this and you want that. How in the hell are we supposed to work it out? And that's why I repeatedly say I genuinely believe that you cannot have long-term success in the NFL unless you have a very clear-cut power structure. It has to be known in the building who's in charge of absolutely everything. Because these reports of, well, he was going to draft Zay Flowers, like that's convenient. I mean, Dave Ziegler, who was fired as the Raiders GM, then leaked to multiple media reports that he really wanted C.J. Stroud in the draft. Well, of course he did. Like, awesome. Like, we never hear that when the draft pick works out. Nobody ever comes out and leaks afterwards, oh, by the way, I wanted the guy that sucks, right?
Yeah,
so,
by the way, I really wanted Anthony Richardson. We have no idea if he's any good, but that's who I really wanted, said the guy that got fired.
It's like there is this moment in my mind where the minute you start hearing from anybody who somebody wanted in the draft, all right, go to the source. We talked about this before. When a rumor comes out, it's really easy to figure out who started it, figure out who benefits from it. So any conversation about Skoronski struggling early on, by the way, a draft pick that was not questioned at the time. Everybody was universally happy with that draft pick nationally. The people that covered the draft, the people that covered Skoronski, the fat guys, everybody seemed to like that pick. But that pick may not be working out. Zay Flowers looks absolutely incredible. So if you hear rumors, oh, well, Rand wanted Zay, who leaked that? Certainly not Vrabel. Like, because the other side of it is if Rand wanted Zay, then why wasn't Zay drafted? So now you have a clear good guy and a clear bad guy in that conversation, which tells you exactly who's leaking it. And the minute you have that, now you have no trust in the organization. You have no trust. The minute you, as a person that covers the Titans, the minute you walk into a press conference, it is on your mind who's doing what and how's it happening. You want to say that that's not also happening in the halls? I mean, players have to know who has final say on everything. The devil's in the details with successful organizations, and successful organizations every single time have a clear-cut answer on who makes final decision for big decisions.
Jason Fitz is with us. So, Fitz, I would not have hired Rand Carthon. I would not have done this collaboration. I would have put somebody in charge if I had owned the Titans, so I wouldn't be in this mess that the Titans find themselves in, which leads me to this. I have said if I owned this football team that on Monday, Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon would not be the coach and general manager anymore, and I would go out looking for a general manager, and then I would empower that general manager to hire the next coach of the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people say, if I fire Rand Carthon after 1 year, everybody around the league will think that I'm crazy or that they won't want to work with me. So what do you assume the national, you're a national guy, what would you assume the national perspective would be on the Titans if they were, in fact, to clean house, which means probably trading Vrabel and then firing Carthon and starting over? What do you think that national perspective would be?
That has absolutely zero impact on anything. Zero. None. I cannot say this loud enough. Like, there is not some negativity that comes with letting a GM go after 1 year. In fact, I mean, look in your own division. Look at the way we were talking about the Texans as an organization. Nobody's going to take that job. D'Amico takes that job. Now all of a sudden you've got a situation where a GM that was thought to be one of the worst in the league and a cancer is now in the minds of some a front runner for executive of the year, right? Like, we have to understand, even when I ask people, why did Frank Reich take the gig in Carolina if he knew that it wasn't going to be a good gig for him and that the owner would be a problem, especially when that's your last shot as a head coach? Every single person I talked to, even people around the team, said because there's only so many of these jobs, because you do want the opportunity to do them. And I just think that what you and I have talked about so often, the Titans fans really lose perspective on is there is not a negative inclination towards the brand of the Tennessee Titans. There is indifference towards the Tennessee Titans. There's a big difference between that, right? Like, we can argue all day about whether or not there is a positive or negative around a brand like ESPN, for example, but there are certain brands that you're simply indifferent to. I don't think that I know that there's not a national conversation happening in any circle that paints the Titans in a negative light because of what they're doing. Right now, the presumption is that the Titans are essentially an invisible gig. But by the way, they're an invisible gig in a city that people genuinely love to be in. They're an invisible gig around a franchise that I don't hear negative things about that. The only thing I hear is the team sucks, which guess what? This year, they do. I was the one out there saying, no, the Titans are going to be better. I was absolutely wrong. But through all the conversation, I've never once had somebody come to me in the league, around the league, that covers the league and say, oh, the Titans nobody wants to work for that organization. That's just not true.
What do you hear on Rand Carthon once you do have these conversations about Vrabel and his name comes up?
Not much. I'll be honest with you, not much. Nobody really. I asked 3 people today why there is a conversation around Rand Carthon, and I don't think I ever got a good answer. The one thing that I will say, just because I think it's important to get this piece of it out. Like I said, it was about half and half on people nationally covering it, whether Mike Vrabel would be back. Of the half that said he would not be back, not a single person that I talked to believed that the Titans are going to fire Mike Vrabel. Let me be very clear about that. So not a single person I talked to today believes the Titans will move on from their head coach. Every one of them that believes that Vrabel will be gone believes that Vrabel will choose to leave. It's a huge difference, and I want to stress that. Like, nobody seems to believe the Titans are anywhere near moving on.
Jason Fitz with us. Last one for you, Fitz, which is, how many jobs – actually, I got 2 more. I lied. First one, how many jobs do you think are going to be open on Monday?
Well, I mean, we've already got, 3 open? So we got 3 open. Washington's probably going to come.
Washington would be 4. New England would be 5.
I'm not 100% sure New England's coming open. I know everybody else tells me New England's coming open. I talked to one person today that said there's a chance that Bill's going to bring in a GM and run it back for 1 more year. I don't know if there's truth to that. I haven't had time to suss that out. But I don't know, man. I think it's easier said than done to move on from Bill Belichick. I'll believe it when I see it. We've even prepped to, again, peek behind the curtain at Yahoo. I've already done the video that we're going to launch when Bill Belichick is no longer with the Titans. Like, it's already pre-recorded. It's in the can. I just don't know that I believe that that's actually going to happen. So we're at 5 there. I think Eberflus stays in Chicago. So I don't think that he's going to be let go. So I only think that we'll get 1 or 2 unexpected. So maybe
what about
6,
Arthur?
7 jobs. Oh, Arthur's gone. Arthur Smith has to be gone. Yeah, 100%.
Really?
Yes, 100%. 100%. And that it's not because he's not a capable coach. It's just because you can't go through year after year after year what they've gone through with the weapons they have on the offensive side of the ball, not look good and save your job. I haven't heard a single person tell me that Arthur Smith is coming back, other than Harry Douglas, and we all love Harry. Harry's one of my best friends. But Harry also tried to convince me that Desmond Ridder was the answer at quarterback before the season started.
Yeah, Harry, and I love him because he likes all the teams. He played for the teams that I root for. Harry is,
He's a Falcon through. I think he goes, in his sleep. That's how Falcon-y he is.
He is absolutely that way. Jason Fitz, as always, on the program. Fitz, appreciate your hard work on the Vrabel front. We will talk soon. Oh, I said I had one more. Duh. This time next week, when you're on our program, yes or no, will Mike Vrabel or Rand Carthon be back with the Tennessee Titans?
I think Mike Vrabel will be, and I think Rand Carthon won't.
Really?
Vrabel, yeah. I think Mike Vrabel, like I said last week, I thought Vrabel was gone. I had too many people today point out all of the issues that would come with that acquisition. I think Vrabel's back. I think Vrabel's back. I think he wins the power war. I think there is a power war, and I think he wins it.
Oh, that would be some freaking tea. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. Fitz, great stuff. Appreciate you, as always.
Happy New Year, my friend. Appreciate you.
Yep, Jason Fitz joining us on the show. So Chris Sanders earlier today says Carthon back, not Vrabel. Fitz says Vrabel back, not Carthon. Wow. Nobody has a freaking clue, do they? Unbelievable. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get to your phones on this if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
this team is bad. This offensive line is atrocious. They really have some real issues. And the issues are, how good are they in the front office? And is Carthon and Vrabel going to be able to coexist together? I think that's got to be something talked about. They want to keep Vrabel, but I think Vrabel's not happy with the setup that he has.
That was Mike Lombardi on the GM Shuffle podcast. And Fitz just came on the show. By the way, Ian, we got to thank Jason Fitz, because he came on and was like, hey, I knew I was coming on today for my weekly spot, so I did a bunch of talking to a lot of people that are connected in the NFL.
Putting in the work.
I mean, he put in the work for that spot. Thank you, Fitzy. That is very, very kind of you. And Fitz says, we asked Chris Sanders earlier today. I said to Chris, Chris, do you think that on Monday, Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon will be Titans? And he said, Carthon, yes. Vrabel, no. That makes sense, right? Like, Vrabel, lost 7 in a row at the end of last year. Vrabel, we've always talked about the pendulum of blame. After GM, it goes to the coach. And so they blame the GM last year, so now you blame the coach this year. That's nothing new. I mean, I wouldn't do that necessarily, but I understand the idea of, well, let's see what Rand can do, which I'm not interested in, but that's, you guys can see that. So, I get it. Makes sense. Fitz says Vrabel will win the power struggle, that there is a power struggle. Of course, again, this is all his gut. He doesn't know anything, as far as inside. But he says he thinks Vrabel wins the power struggle, and on Monday, Rand will not be a Titan. Holy crap if that happens. And if that happens, Mike Vrabel will be on the ultimate hot seat, if that's what goes down. I mean, then every Andre Dillard is his fault. Every draft choice, his fault. Every player who doesn't develop, his fault. We've talked about all these picks. You guys think John Robinson's the worst GM who ever lived. He won 61% of his games as general manager of the Titans. And the reason why I say that is because Bill Walsh won 61% of his games running the San Francisco 49ers. Bill Walsh is one of the greatest coaches of all time and had the same winning percentage as John Robinson. And so I see all these bad picks, and you all say, oh, Robinson blew it. His was terrible. This pick, this guy's bad, this guy's. And we never talk about whether or not the coach can develop them. Vrabel was always more popular. So it was easier to blame Robinson for the players and then blame Todd Downing for the coaching. Vrabel didn't get any blame. But if Vrabel wins that power struggle with Rand Carthon, then he better be 13-4 next year. Like, I'll just tell you that right now. Holy crap, would that be a press conference if that's what happened. Ryan in Nashville says, maybe Vrabel goes to Amy and says, I gave this a chance with Rand and it's not working out. Give me an experienced general manager who knows what they're doing. However, it would be a bad look to fire a GM after 1 year who the NFL wanted the Titans to hire. So again, there's no proof that says that the NFL wanted the Titans to hire a minority candidate and that's why they hired Rand Carthon. I don't know. Again, everybody can believe what they want. There's just no proof that says that. So I'll survive on that front. But I think we need to keep in mind what Fitz said when I asked, if they fire Rand Carthon after 1 year, how will people react to it? And he said nobody will care. I think we need to remember that. Forget about the look. Nobody knows who Rand Carthon is. Like, nobody across the country. In fact, I would guess Rand Carthon could probably go to like Walmart here in town and he may not get recognized. And that's not a knock on him. That's just the reality of how people, it's very easy. Here today, gone tomorrow. Very easy. I can't see Vrabel saying, hey, you sprung this on me and it was a shotgun marriage and it ain't working out. That I could see. Especially, here's the key to Vrabel winning a power struggle. If Vrabel's got a second job on the back end. Texture says, I don't think the Titans will fire Carthon because some of these picks in the offseason were Vrabel's, like Andre Dillard. Again, we don't know that. I have stopped operating under the premise that, oh, that was Vrabel's, or oh, that was Rand's, or oh, that was, I guess in some instances, right, like the 49er guys, Art and Key, Aziz and Brunskill, those are probably Rand Carthon decisions, or at least guys that Rand vouched for. And the guys that stayed, like Nick Westbrook, Akine, and Aaron Brewer for $4.3 million, those are probably Mike Vrabel decisions. Even then, who knows? But I can't pin Andre Dillard on either guy. I can't pin Peter Skoronski on either guy. I just can't do it. Texter into the text line says it will be wild if they fire the GM. And another texter into the text line says, well, some of these decisions are Vrabel's. Like, whoa now. Somebody just sent in an entire somebody sent in an entire thing of Ferengi rules of acquisitions.
There you go.
Again, I just dropped that one. This is my nerd alert there. I am a Star Trek fan. I'm also a Stargate SG-1 fan. Star Wars, not so much. 615-737-1025 on the program, 615-737-1025. It's about to be 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, and you know what that means. Ian, what does that mean?
Oh, it's debate time.
Jared versus Joe is next. Stillman and Company on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. It's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday for the first time in 2024, which means Jared versus Joe. Caroline, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How we doing?
Outstanding, even though losing does suck. Joseph Robinette Rex Road Jr., GB Joe, back from his Nico debut out at that meaningless bowl game. Joseph, how are you?
I'm great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Let's get right to it.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game.
Caroline, the floor is yours.
Losing does suck. It effing sucks. And speaking of Mike Vrabel, he spoke with the media again today and said that he wants to be here next year and said that he is committed to fixing this and to winning championships with Rand Carthon. Jared, you go first. Do we believe that Mike Vrabel wants to be here? And do we believe that Mike Vrabel is committed to working with Rand Carthon?
Okay, so those are tough questions for me to answer as far as what I believe. What I believe is that Mike Vrabel said what he said, and Mike Vrabel had no choice but to say what he said. It reminds me of Nick Saban vowing not to take the Alabama job, or Amy Adams Strunk releasing the statement saying that Mike Mularkey was going to be the head coach going forward, just because saying the alternative or not committing would have just been disastrous. And so I have a hard time, hearing that and saying, oh, Vrabel wants to be here. But at the same time, if I knew Vrabel's other options, then I could probably have a real gut on this, right? But I don't know who else would want Vrabel. I will say this. I think there is some serious smoke between him and Rand Carthon. And this is a story that will not go away. And regardless of the fact that nobody has, a smoking gun that says Vrabel hates Rand Carthon, there have been things that have been reported. There have been discussions that have been had. And I'll just say this. I've heard some things on the back end that make me think that Mike Vrabel was surprised by Rand Carthon's hiring and that it was an arranged shotgun marriage, and that, again, I said when this happened, I said the only way this collaboration works is if they win, because if they don't win, it's going to turn into, well, he wanted Andre Dillard. No, he wanted to draft Peter Skoronski. So your question was, is Vrabel committed to working with Rand Carthon? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that that there is a legitimate power struggle here, and Vrabel wants to be named king, and that he is going to campaign however he has to. It's hard to do when you lose every game by 50 points, but he is going to try to become the king this offseason, not because he hates Rand or disrespects him or anything like that, but just because he doesn't trust him. They don't see eye to eye, whatever it may be.
They don't lose every game by 50 points.
They lost the last one by 50.
That every game, Drama King.
Joe?
They lose every game. Just not by 50
yeah,
points.
I mean, I guess I generally agree with the idea of, things like, I've seen a bunch of things like this, and he said exactly what you have to say in that situation, and I didn't think it was like a disingenuous moment. I will say I put more stock in what he said today than any particular sort of hazy report about Vrabel Carthon stuff. There is a lot, but there's also there's just a lot of stuff in general. Now there's this thing about Gerard Mayo is rubbing people the wrong way. There's a lot of. Did
you see who reported that, by the way? Joe? Did we lose Joe?
Here, you don't have me?
Oh, now we got you.
Did you
see who
the first
reported?
mute of 24?
Yeah. Did you see? Did you see who reported that Gerard Mayo rubbing people the wrong way story?
That's what I read the paragraph. Was that Bedard?
It was Bedard.
Ha.
Yeah. So in other words, I'm going to say, is that Johnny Kraft making noise up there?
Hey, Bedard told you Mike Mularkey was getting fired.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I feel like there's people trying to make things happen. I don't necessarily buy that it's Vrabel trying to make things happen. Do I believe? I believe that Mike Vrabel, you have to be racing of the possibility of just being in this job next year. You may, right? And if so, then you have to also embrace that you're going to have to work with the GM who just got hired. So I guess I would come around and say, yeah, I buy it. I just don't necessarily buy, I have no other eyes on anything else, and this is all I want, and everything is just wonderful. Look, you just said collaborations don't work if you're not winning, or this collaboration won't work if they're not winning. Well, that's just like any collaboration. So
sure.
Vrabel has got to be, realistically, he has to understand, and he does, that this may be his only option to keep this job and to work with Rand, and so he's got to make the best of it.
I just keep going back to the idea that, Vrabel didn't know Rand Carthon, and all of a sudden we're just supposed to assume that it is working out. And that's the thing where I have a hard time getting to. My gut tells me, and Joe, you know the standards of journalism, and you know some of these capital J journalists and things like that. It feels like the constant message out of Foxborough, whether it is Lombardi or Bedard or Ben Volen, is Mike Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon, or that they've been butting heads. And I think what's crazy to me is that as soon as he got back from Foxborough, he goes up to New England. He makes that comment about how New England's better than other places he's been. Then he gets back here, throws Rand kind of under the bus on the Levis report with Ian Rappaport. Then all of a sudden, all this stuff comes out from Foxborough over time, or Foxborough connections over time about how Vrabel doesn't like Carthon. The one thing I feel, I wouldn't say pretty certain of, but I think there may be some truth to. I think Vrabel went up to Foxborough for his Hall of Fame weekend and spent the whole weekend bitching about Rand Carthon.
I understand why you would think that, and I don't know if you're right or wrong. It's possible. But also, you are, let's say, whoever, the Patriots as a conglomerate. If Amy Adams Strunk thinks that Mike and Rand have an issue, then that influences how she thinks about this, right? So that's why I don't trust any of it. I mean, maybe it's that simple. He went up there and he was complaining about Rand. It was Rand who picked Andre Dillard. I didn't like him at all. Whatever it may be. That may be. But also, like, Amy Armstrong doesn't know what's going on, like, in their daily conversation or whatever. So if she's out there wondering, wait a minute, do they not get along? Like, that could influence her decision to move him, right? I mean, we can talk about this for a whole hour and go through the different iterations of it. I don't know.
Here's what's crazy is Vrabel addressed it today, and I'm not sure that, I feel any closer to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that good job by Terry McCormick asking it. He asked in the way of sort of like, how do you address it with the team? So it's good that he addressed it. He hasn't really talked about this since the New England speech when he told you to talk like a dude.
Yeah. I also love, I'm glad Terry asked the question, but he was like, all the stuff on social media. I'm like, social media, it's in the Washington Post. Like, that's not social media.
It does give you an out to just blame it on Twitter. It's not just Twitter. It's reporters reporting things.
Correct. Caroline, what's next?
That darn Twitter. All right, Joe, you go first. This time next week, after the season wraps up, after the Jacksonville game, what will the hierarchy of the Titans look like?
Okay, so you're saying who will be coach and GM?
What will the hierarchy be? Will it be Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel? Will it be the same kind of dynamic? Will it be the same collaboration? Will one of them be gone? Will both of them be gone?
Yeah, it'll be the same. It'll be the same thing. And I don't know that for sure, but I think that's the safe money. That no one's getting fired, no one's getting traded. And and if they are both here, I certainly don't see some sort of, okay, we're going to change it around. Look, I think it's pretty clear that while I'm as frustrated as anyone with the whole collaboration, we're not going to tell you, and the fact that they didn't tell us makes it obvious that that it's not clear. But I think that these guys brought in here, they're clearly Rand choices, right? And I've never believed that Vrabel was ever going to be in here and say, hi, Rand, good to meet you. I have final say on everything. Run it past me. Vrabel would always want to say, okay, you believe in that guy? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go with that guy. Now, like a guy, like a bad choice like Dillard, that's where it gets interesting, right? But I've always believed that to actually do the collaboration. I mean, I agree with what Jared has said, and we've talked about it. When it goes badly is when that gets a lot harder to, just talk about in those terms. But the idea that there'd be any sort of like change in hierarchy among the two of them, I mean, I don't. What would that look like? I don't even understand. Like, what would that be? Amy saying, okay, now Rand, whatever he says, and Mike, you have no say. Just go coach the football team.
So Chris Sanders today said that he thinks that this time next week, Rand Carthon will be here and Mike Vrabel won't. And Jason Fitz last hour said that he thinks that this time next week, that Mike Vrabel will still be here and Rand Carthon won't be. And I am
We got all the options.
Here's what's crazy, and this is going to be a really long-winded way to get to the answer that I don't know, but I am going to pick one here. I'm just going to have to walk myself through it. Is the ultimate trump card in this is that Vrabel has to have somewhere else to go. If Vrabel is going to make a power play, he has to have a second option and not I could sit out a year and then get hired, but he has to have if Rand's still here because I can't work with him, then the Chargers are going to offer a second-round pick for me, and they're going to give me $9 million a year. Like, he's got to have that other offer ready to go to force Amy's hand. And I don't know if he's going to have that because, I mean, if there could be 10 jobs that are open. If Atlanta decides to fire Arthur and New Orleans decides to fire Dennis Allen, and then it's like, are there 10 coaching candidates out there? At least 5 guys that would be better than Vrabel? Like, I don't know. And so maybe that alters kind of Vrabel's approach to going to Amy. Now, I have said that if I was Rand Carthon, I would be doing one of two things. I'd either be trashing Vrabel in the media, sources said, or I'd be trashing Vrabel to Amy. Like, hey, I know you love this guy. He can't coach. Like, let me go get somebody that can coach. And so I just don't believe it's roses. I think Rand stays, Vrabel goes. That's what I think Rand stays, Vrabel goes, because ultimately I think Vrabel's going to be the one that tells Amy to choose. And after she chose him last year and essentially gave him a promotion, she's going to let him go, trade him, and let Rand hire a coach, which I am completely against, except for the fact that he may be able to land Bobby Slowick, who I really like. But that's what I think is going to happen. I think this time next week, Rand's the GM, Vrabel's out, and he's traded somewhere else.
What do we think is the likelihood of Rand getting fired and Vrabel staying? I think that's the least likely of all options.
Yeah, very low. I mean, I think either of them fired is very low. But I would agree that's the lowest.
So I would think about it like this, right? Like, I've had people in that organization that have told me that Vrabel can do no wrong in Amy's eyes. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard. And if that's the case, and Vrabel goes to Amy and is like, look, you told me to try to work it out with this guy, and it's not going to work, and basically I need you to pick him or me, I could see her, if she loves him that much, picking him. And I just don't know if she does or doesn't. I just don't think it's very likely. I mean, I asked Fitz, I said, what would the reaction be if Rand Carthon got fired after 1 year? And he said there would be no reaction. Like, nobody around the country would care. Nobody would bat an eyelash at a general manager. I just think it's going to be, like, I'm just telling you that I think there's going to be a massive story from the standpoint that Vrabel lost 7 games at the end of last year when Rand Carthon was still with the 49ers. And then Rand Carthon gets hired, and then Rand Carthon gets fired, and Mike Vrabel doesn't. And it's like, Rand wasn't part of those 7 losses last year. And, I mean, the optics.
It would be incredibly stupid and make Amy Adams Strunk look incredibly stupid.
Well, I mean, it's only incredibly stupid if Rand, is a good GM. If they realized after a year that Rand doesn't know if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, then it wouldn't be incredibly stupid. You know what I mean? Muted
Okay.
Joe.
No, I'm not muted.
I mean, if Rand sucks and they know it, like if they think Rand's incompetent, which I kind of lean towards, if they think that, then it wouldn't be bad to fire him after 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but it would have to be, to me, that would have to be like he's pouring hot coffee on people in the building. It's so bad. I
No,
mean,
that would
again,
be, and I don't know whose decision it was, and neither do you. That would be they drafted a freaking guard in the first round who's not very good. Oh wait,
yeah, but okay, all right. So if you know right now the career outcome of Peter Skronsky, then I suppose so.
No.
You look at the entire.
That's not, no. A guard at 11 is not somebody who's allowed to suck in year one, and right now he sucks.
First of all, there's a couple things there. One, as with any pick, who really wanted him? I don't know. Two, there's an entire draft class, which to me doesn't speak to rampant, just complete, lack of ability to do anything in Tyre's shoes. There's some decent picks there. I mean, the Dillard thing is a disaster. It wasn't a good thing overall, but like the first offseason was not like, oh my God, you got to fire that GM.
Oh yeah, it was. Look at the offensive line. It is 10 times worse than it was last year, and that should be impossible given how bad last year's offensive line was.
Offensive line is a years in the making disaster. It is not a 1 year disaster. Dillard is a disaster. He replaced the disaster.
Brewer for $4.3 million? Disaster. Skoronsky season?
Whose guy is Brewer? Whose guy is Brewer?
We don't know.
Whose guy? Oh, dude, Mike Vrabel would adopt him if he could. So
I would assume that that's correct, but I don't know that. And that's the whole point about the Titans collaboration is it's like, well, who's responsible for this one? Here's the thing I'll say about the offensive line.
But Brewer predated Rand. Anything that predated Rand,
no. They gave Brewer a $4.3 million tenure.
So what? That's not the biggest thing. He was here before Rand.
It was incompetent to give Brewer a $4.3 million tenure
before Rand ever got here.
Rand Carthon, if he has any power in the organization, Rand Carthon should have said, why are we giving Aaron Brewer a $4.3 million tender when we could give him $2.6 million?
I've heard you talk about this a million times, but again, we're now getting into nitty-gritty of, again, we're trying to explain why Rand Carthon would be fired.
Well, he spent the whole offseason denying these Kevin Byard stuff when he always trying to get $3 million out of him, so I guess every penny counts.
Fire him. Fire them all. Put Jared in charge.
That's what I would do. More Jared versus Joe continues next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.2 The Game. Jared versus Joe. I am harboring some anger towards Joe, but Caroline, I'll let you go ahead.
I don't know how I could possibly one up that one, so why don't you go ahead and unharbor that resentment?
All right, here's my question, and I'm going to include you on this one too. Joe was going down what I call the Twitter excuses for Peter Skoronski. When the Titans drafted Peter Skoronski with the 11th overall pick, I prayed. Like I sat by my bed at night and I put my hands together and I looked up and I said, please play him at left tackle. And everybody told me, no, guard's more important than left tackle, which makes no sense because everybody pays tackles more money than they play guards. So I don't understand why that would be a thing. But they decided to play him at guard. Not one snap at tackle in mini camp or anything else. So they drafted him to play guard. Even though they lied when they picked him and said, we'll let him play all the positions, they lied. They drafted him to play guard. He's been awful for like the last month and a half. And yet, I keep hearing this moving of the goalposts, which was Joe in the last segment sitting there saying, oh, so you know now unequivocally what Peter Skoronski is going to be.
Jared,
wait a minute. Wasn't the agreed upon standard if you draft a guard in the 11th round with the 11th pick, specifically this guard, was it not like the standard? Oh, he's plug and play. He goes right in and we never have to worry about him and we never have to talk about him again. And I don't see there being any excuse for why he's not that. And he is not that right now.
Again, see, I don't even so again, you want to take things out of context, Jared, which is what you do just on an incredibly routine basis.
What's out of context?
Because the conversation was firing Rand Carthon in less than a year that he's been on the job. My point being, we don't know. You think that we know the outcome of Peter Skoronski's career? I would agree that's a disappointing rookie season. I've also said, and I'll say again, he has to be great to justify that pick. I do not know what's going to happen next year. I do not know what's going to happen 3 years from now with Peter Skoronski. But so the conversation is about, well, that's the reason to fire your GM after less than a year. And I'm saying you don't know. I'm not making excuses for anybody.
It just feels to me like, again, that if you're going to take a guard with the 11th pick, that freaking guy, it's not well, in 3 years he might be good. That's not the deal. The deal is he's good right away.
He should be great right away. He should be great next year. He should have been great
he's not.
This year. Yep.
And that's a massive concern.
Okay, it is a concern. But again,
towards the competence of the Titans.
Do you know?
Do I know that Peter Skoronski stinks right now? Yes, I do.
Do you know what he's going to be next year? No, I don't either.
It doesn't matter. He's a guard.
Okay.
And they drafted a quarterback second. I can't get over that. And it just drives me crazy that everybody, again, the amount of times I get tweeted, and I did say I'd ask both of you, so I do want your opinion on this too, Caroline. The amount of times I get tweeted, he had an appendectomy 4 months ago, drives me insane.
As far as Peter Skoronski is concerned, it is concerning how he's been playing. But also, I cannot rip on how horrendous the rest of the offensive line is and expect Peter Skoronski to be playing at a Pro Bowl level.
What about playing better at the level than he's at now?
Well, of course, I would love that. But also, left tackle has been a revolving door of bad to worse. Your center's, 47 pounds. Aaron Brewer is terrible. The right side's not much better. I don't really know how good Peter Skoronski is expected to be when both of the guys next to him are horrendous.
I expect him to be a lot better than he is now, where he gets turnstiled and Tannehill has to throw the ball out of bounds because he sees a rusher coming right at him.
Would I like Peter Skoronski to be better? Absolutely. But I also don't know what's fair to expect of a rookie with absolute trash on both sides of it.
Oh, I'll tell you what's fair to expect out of a rookie guard drafted with the 11th overall pick. I mean, it's expected that he goes right to the Pro Bowl. And
that's expected of a rookie guard picked with the 11th overall pick, which lacks a lot of context of what Peter Skoronski is dealing with right now.
But see, the context that I focus on here, again, goes back to Joe's point about firing the general manager after 1 year, which is the complete and total incompetence as far as the offensive line is concerned. Andre Dillard, regardless of what you thought, Andre Dillard was a bust in Philadelphia.
And nobody is disputing that.
Okay. So then is it not incompetent that the Titans have never tried the All-American first-team left tackle at left tackle this year?
I'm with you there.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the Titans to move
The other
Peter
side
Skronsky
of
to left
Brewer,
tackle.
the other side of Skronsky is Brewer, a 270-pound center. Is that not incompetent? And
I've
again,
never argued that it's not, and that's my exact point. Is it's incompetence to his left and incompetence to his right.
Right. It's all incompetent. That's why you get rid of a general manager when you realize that this guy does not understand the offensive line of football.
Look, if the Titans decide to
This is
move
good.
on,
Keep it going, guys.
if the Titans decide to move on
I'm
from Rand
enjoying this.
Carthon after this season, fine. If that's the message is, look, we went in with this intention, with Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon collaborating. It clearly did not work. The team took a step back. The team is worse this year than it was last year. So we're going to clean house and move forward and find a new general manager and have that general manager hand select their coach of their choice. Then fine. I understand. If that's the vision, if that's the plan moving forward, okay, that's fine. I don't expect them to do that.
Would you do it?
It's a good question.
I got on you yesterday because you did the same thing with a caller. You're like, caller, I understand your take. I'm like, understand it, Caroline. Do you hate it or like it?
I got your text. I read it. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, I know. I know you got it. But that's my thing here. Like you say, you understand it. If Amy said, Caroline, I trust you. You don't blab like Jared does. I'm thinking about firing Rand. And I know people are going to be mad. I'm thinking about firing both Rand and Vrabel. And I know people are going to be mad for firing a first-year GM. But I've looked at my offensive line, and I've looked at my defense, and I've looked at all of it, and I just think we need a totally fresh start. Would you object to that?
I just said I would get it. I would not object to that.
Do you think it'd be a good idea, Caroline, if I decided to do that?
I don't think it's a good idea to move on from a general manager in 1 year. No, I do not.
But what about this general manager after this 1 year?
I just said, no, I don't think it's a good idea, Jared.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure we were clear. You'd understand, but you don't like it.
Yes.
Okay. What's the next question?
Next question. Speaking of Rand Carthon, Jared, you go first. How much blame does Rand Carthon deserve?
I would say Rand Carthon deserves 25% of the blame. I think Amy Adams Strunk deserves 50% because this whole collaboration thing is stupid. And I think the idea of a football team, of there not being one person who has this idea that's like, oh, no, they collaborate in San Francisco. That's a wonderful, wonderful narrative, except that it's not true. Kyle Shanahan has it in his contract that he has final say on the roster. When Rand Carthon told the story.
You always say that, Jared. You always say that, but you have no idea what their conversations are.
Okay.
You have no idea how they go through the communication.
That's not true.
You don't know.
That is not true.
Yes, it is true.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is true.
May I explain how it's not true that I have no idea? May I explain?
Sure, Jared.
When at the Rand Carthon introductory press conference, I asked Rand if there was any San Francisco draft story in particular that he was proud of. And he brought up Elijah Mitchell that they drafted in the 6th round. And he said that the analytics person, who's now with the Vikings, the analytics person came to Rand and said, this is the best outside zone runner in the draft according to my analytics. But I need you to watch the tape because, as Rand said, the analytics person said to him, I can't go to Kyle with just the analytics. Not I can't go to John.
Oh, wow.
Not
well,
I can't go to Kyle and John. I can't go to Kyle is what he said.
Wonderful. Yeah, Jared,
so
we were all there.
You say I have no idea what those conversations are like. I just told you the conversation.
Yeah, well, that must be every player then. They must John Lynch, you can just go sit over there. No need for you, buddy.
Again,
Jared
Shanahan,
knows it's all Kyle.
I'm not saying that Lynch doesn't have a job to do. I'm saying that Shanahan picks the freaking players. And that so does Andy Reid, and so does Pete Carroll. And I know Pete Carroll picks the players because Floyd interviewed for that job, and the reason why he didn't take it is because he wanted to pick the players, not Pete. So I would go, again, to answer your question, 50% Amy, because this collaboration thing is so stupid. 25% ran because, again, I just see too much incompetence in the roster building. And look, Robinson's had screwed up some or whatever, but like Dylan Radins might be the best offensive lineman on this team this year. That is insanely embarrassing. And then 25% Vrabel because, I mean, this offensive line coach is blown up in his face and the guy's got no experience, and Vrabel got a promotion and had a little bit more say in the roster, and Vrabel won't play Skoronski at tackle, and Vrabel just will keep putting Brewer out there at center even though he's too small and he can't snap. So Vrabel's got to get some of the blame there. So I'll go 25-25 on the 2, and then I'll go 50 on the owner for putting the, collaboration together that is just so stupid.
Well, I mean, I guess so. So is that what you're asking for, Caroline? That those three splitting it up?
Give me your blame pie, Joe.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess I'd go. I guess I'd agree on the 50% Amy. I mean, she's the owner. She fired John Robinson in season. I think that firing John Robinson was a worthwhile discussion after last season. She fires him in season, didn't help that team, and I don't know if the Rand Carthon hire is good or not. I do not know. I think the first offseason was not great. It also wasn't the disaster that Jared paints it to be. But, I mean, I would give Vrabel a little more than Rand. So, I mean, I guess if I'm going the other 50% of the pie, just because Vrabel's coaching the team, Vrabel's been here longer, all these issues that predate Rand, the personnel issues primarily, Vrabel had a hand in those too. I mean, Vrabel had plenty of input when John Robinson was GM, which is, again, how it always goes, even though Jared likes to say, no, this person picked the player and this person doesn't.
I did not say that Mike Vrabel.
I
did not say that Mike Vrabel didn't have input on that roster. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with somebody, and in all these organizations, we know who that person is, and we don't know that here because there is not somebody here.
Which is why I have a hard time placing blame or just divvying up blame between Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel because I don't know who made those decisions.
So here's my theory about
I
Biden.
agree.
Joe, you know this because you got kids. But the theory is if both your kids won't tell you who screwed up, who gets punished, Joe?
Yeah, everybody does. So
Bingo.
I agree. But ultimately, like if someone told me actually one guy or the other was all over Dillard, it was like this is going to work, and the other guy was hesitant, then I'd give me 10% to the guy who was all over Dillard. I don't know that. So, but I'm going to give Vrabel a little more than Rand because he coaches the team, and he's lost 18 of 23 games. I mean, it's not just only personnel. I mean, they have made ridiculous mistakes in games this year. Way too many of them. They have looked like a poorly coached team too often beyond just not having good enough personnel. So,
and let's not forget Craig Aukerman this year, which was not Rand Carthon's fault.
I'm surprised you're not trying to blame him for that. Give me, 30-20 Vrabel, so 20 Rand. How about that?
Caroline, who wins this week?
Before we go, last question. Joe, you go first. Joe Milton, Michigan's biggest loss. Tennessee's biggest gain.
Hot take. Holy crap.
Michigan is hurting without Joe Milton.
So now that is funny. That is very good. I invite you to read the story again, which, by the way, that headline was a question because Tennessee thought Joe Milton was going to be
the answer to that question is no.
I don't know how Michigan will ever recover from losing Joe Milton.
No, not at all. And the funny thing is, he lost the job to Cade McNamara, who lost the job to J.J. McCarthy. And Cade McNamara should have been quarterbacking Iowa, and it would have looked like a football team on Monday, but he was hurt this year. How about that?
Caroline, who wins?
I lean Joe this week just because I do think that Mike Vrabel deserves more blame than Rand Carthon, that a lot of this team's issues precede Rand Carthon. And a lot of, if we're going to say that Mike Vrabel has final say, well, then I'll have to put more blame on Mike
Who
Vrabel.
said that?
Well, do you believe that Mike Vrabel has final say? I do.
No. I don't think there's a final say.
Nobody makes a decision?
No, I think if they really disagree on something, like this is how I think that they drafted Skoronski, right? So Derek has said that he thinks that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers. And on the pregame show, I asked Derek to expand upon how he knows that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers, and he would not elaborate other than to say that he knows. So my guess is the way they did this was one guy probably wanted somebody. Rand is saying he wanted Zay Flowers, and they couldn't come to an agreement, so they went right to the board. And I think that if there's any big issues, that Amy's the one that they take it to Amy and say, what do you think? You decide.
Even more reason to give Amy at least 50%.
Oh, Amy, I mean, Amy is absolutely culpable.
Well,
yeah, she's public enemy number one.
No, if everything goes to her on something like that, then she gets more than 50. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
I don't think that's how it is, but that's ridiculous.
Joe, congratulations.
Thank you.
Stillman and Company continues next. Thank both of you for your service on today's program of arguing and yelling. It has been fantastic. Stillman and Company continues 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Mike said need to win for a lot of reasons. We'll expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry. Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Why?
It f***ing sucks. Losing. Awful. That's why I want to win.
There you go. That was Vrabel yesterday. Everybody's already heard that. Somebody tweeted me today and said that Gentry Estes was catching strays on the Jim Rome show today, to which I was surprised that people still listen to Jim Rome. But apparently he was. By the way, that's not a shot at Rome. Rome had an incredible career. Nobody ever talks about Jim Rome anymore. I remember last year I told Caroline, I was like, Jim Rome was like Stephen A. Smith back. And she was, wait a minute, what? Yeah, Jim Rome was that big. Adam is up next. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Adam, go ahead.
Man, it was a good segment that last day. Hey, I think you guys are overthinking this. I think it's seriously overcomplicated by the fact that he was a Patriot and he has this Patriot pedigree and he's a winner and people think he's the second Belichick. They cut him so much slack. I want you to go back to.
You think I'm overthinking that?
I feel like you're on that pie chart too, buddy. You are a problem. You are toxic to this coaching staff. All the media is. It's not just you.
You think it's my fault this team sucks?
No, I think it's your fault for how you address each one of these topics, but don't hit them you don't hit the nail on the head. The problem, remember how Jeff Fisher was treated right before he got ousted. They're not doing that to Vrabel right now at all.
What did they do to Jeff Fisher?
Everybody was begging for his job for a long time before he got fired.
What I felt like at the time was I felt like the media in town was, finger wagging us, and I think it's some of the same people were finger wagging us saying, no, if you fire Jeff Fisher, he'll get a job tomorrow. And you know as well as I do, Adam, that is not happening on this show. I've said I'd fire both of them at the end of the year. This is the opposite of what happened with Jeff Fisher.
Well, listen to me, man. So Jeff, and he did get a job, by the way, and he just wasn't very good after that.
So I don't give a rat's ass if somebody else thinks he's a good coach.
Here's the deal. Jeff Fisher kind of earned part of it. What has Vrabel earned here, man? If you could just take your mind off of the fact that there's a half the fan base that loves it. So what am I saying
that you don't like?
There's legit a segment that you and Joe just fought about for 20 minutes about this subject, but why do we have to just dance around the fact that Vrabel is the blame for all of this, man?
Because
you think J-Rob sucks?
He's not. He's not as great of a coach. Thank you, Adam. He's not as great of a coach as everybody makes him out to be, but he's not the one that, put together this stupid collaboration. He's not. When they fired John Robinson, I begged him to go hire a real general manager. That is the general manager. And they decided that they knew better than everybody else, and now we're collaborating. This is not all Vrabel's fault. And if Vrabel loves Aaron Brewer, fine. But I want the general manager to stand up to him and say, we're not giving him $4.3 million. We're not doing that. And so if the general manager is just a doormat for Vrabel, well, then that's another discussion. But as far as this, you're not hard enough on Vrabel, give me a break. 615-737-1025. I'll tell you what, this Paul Kaharski, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I'll explain two things today that I just laughed my tush off. We'll do that next. Window Nation. That's right. Online at windownation.com. I don't know anything about windows, but I know that this is the time of the year where when the sun's out, it's warm. When the sun goes down, it is cold as you know what. And so let Window Nation, if you've got issues in your home with windows, or you need some new windows, or you just want to see if you can save some money with better windows, let Window Nation take great care of that. Again, windownation.com. Let them do that. I'm just going to tell you right now, Weather impacts your windows. Hot days, cold nights can cause caulk to crack and seal fractures and all kinds of stuff. And again, I'm not smart enough to know anything about what to do or what not to do other than to tell you, call Window Nation today. And with Window Nation, what's great, as interest and mortgage rates are going to climb, Window Nation is still keeping 0% interest for 5 years. That's right. 0% interest. Your energy bills will be at all-time highs as the winter's coming. And with these windows, you'll get 0% interest for 5 years and 50% off all styles of windows. Now is the time to upgrade to protect your family from the elements with Window Nation. Again, that phone number for Window Nation is 866-90NATION, and they're online at windownation.com. Stillman and Company. So I was listening to Robbie and Joe this morning, and as I was listening, they had Paul in studio, and Paul says about 100 things, right? And some of them I agree with, and some of them I vehemently disagree with. And in some cases, I roll my eyes, like when I felt like he was kind of bullying Rand Carthon today by saying that he needs to be at the press conference on Monday because he's scared of the Nashville media. And I'm like, okay, Paul. I'm like, you want to attack Rand, like you want to hold Rand Carthon's feet to the fire. And I do too, by the way. But, you know, again, saying that he's scared of the media, that's kind of whatever. And I kind of roll my eyes at it and things I disagree with or whatever. And then every now and then, and this has happened multiple times, including the time that he said sharded on the air. But I'll be doing something and I'll just stop and I'll just start laughing. Like I just can't help myself sometimes. Today, there were two separate things. The first was Paul's opinion on the Cheez-It Bowl.
Real quick, you got any college football takes?
I think it's a joke to be interested in bowl games outside of the two that were Monday night. That's fun that you went to Orlando and saw, people talk about the Titans games being meaningless after they're out of the Titans games are well, let me do it Southern. Well, Joe, the Titans games are just meaningless. I don't understand once they're out of the playoffs why they play anybody of any value. But the Vols, my God, I mean, they found their quarterback against Iowa, and this bowl game was the most important game in the history of the program since the national championship.
Hey, Nico's an important
And I'm not contradicting myself one bit. I mean, it's completely
I can't argue with that, can I? Like, everybody sits there, all these people are, we should lose on purpose, Jared, so we get a better pick. And then Nico plays well in this bowl game, and it's like, whoa, God, yes. And it's like, whoa, now. I mean, they're equally as meaningful or meaningless, right? I mean, I went to the Holiday Bowl last week, and I was mad we didn't win. I'm still mad we didn't win. But I'm also going to watch Titans this week, and I want them to win. And then there was this take on Caroline that I didn't hear what Caroline said. Did you hear what Caroline said, Ian?
I did not, no.
I didn't hear what Caroline said. But this way that he fires a stray at her, I thought was just, I could just see it coming out of her voice.
To Caroline, she was so elegant and eloquent about Alabama's loss. But I just want to summarize what she said was, okay. I can't believe the SEC team lost. How did the SEC team lose? I mean, she dressed it up. It was such great analysis and everything. But at the core of it, and I texted in during it, but you guys didn't have time to read it. I know you would have. It was the same as everybody else. Like, oh, my God, Alabama lost.
Michigan looked pretty good, Joe.
They did.
Yeah. Saw Connor Stalions on the sideline, his little spy cam. He's out there. He had a little drone out there watching Saban's play calls.
He shaved his head, shaved his mustache, but he's still Connor. He's still the Stallions.
Watch that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Go Washington.
I will say this. I thought that I'm like, that sounds like something Caroline would think. Like, I can't believe Alabama lost. By the way, Ian, who picked Michigan?
I guess, did you pick Michigan?
I picked Michigan.
I'll have to double check the standings
I
here.
picked Michigan. Preds Insiders, big win last night. They're next.